A skeleton minion is trembling and collapsing. Its body falls apart. It's clearly dying. With its last moments, it identifies its master, the red-haired demon woman, Mistress Succubus. She looks shocked as the minion dies. A knight runs the red-haired succubus through with his sword. The skeleton minion crawls toward them, pleading to stop. The knight blocks, strikes it with his shield, crushing the skeleton. The knight slams his shield down, crushing the skeleton. Its skull is knocked away. The succubus staggers and falls, bleeding from the chest wound. She lies on the ground, breathing heavily and weakening. The crushed skull whispers, "Mistress." Flashback. The succubus gently pats the skeleton's head, apologizing that she couldn't protect him. Present. She lies bleeding, cradling the skull against her, sharing a quiet, final moment. The armored knight talks with his companion, satisfied after the kill. Nearby, the severed skull rolls and thinks, "If only I were," regretting its weakness. The knight bursts into loud laughter, gloating over their victory. The skull keeps rolling, wishing it were a little stronger. The knight suddenly notices something off and looks down in alarm. He screams. His foot has been severed and is bleeding out on the ground. The skull stops rolling, drenched in blood. It wishes for one thing, a second chance to become stronger. A system-like message answers in the void, "I want to get stronger." Conditions met. Assimilation rate drops from 97.3% to 94.8%. Everything fades to black. The skeleton's thoughts drift. So this is death, a fitting end for a weak soldier. Time to rest. In the darkness, a rushing swa grows louder, too noisy to rest. The sound swells, then cuts to an overcast sky between trees. The skeleton snaps awake, reassembled and upright, realizing it's somewhere new. After dying, the skeleton suddenly reawakens, rising from a stone coffin. It hears rain, looks around a forest, and wonders if this is a dream or the afterlife. The surroundings feel familiar to him. A hooded figure is nearby, silently watching. A blue system window appears. Inheritance complete. It shows his status. Skeleton soldier LV.1, 36, with high stats. Health 29, Strength 23, Agility 18, Wisdom 9. He realizes he's back at level 1, but with level 36 stats, and is confused about what this situation means. The hooded girl shouts to the skeleton, calling him an undead being. She introduces herself, Rubia, and says she woke him from his slumber. The skeleton processes it, thinking, who did she say she was? If she's Rubia, he recognizes the name and realizes this matters. He recognizes her, Rubia, the apprentice necromancer from 20 years ago who first raised him. His bones tense as the realization clicks. Lightning cracks overhead. He understands. He's been sent back to the moment he was first summoned 2 decades in the past. He looks around, wondering if this is a dream, then accepts it's real. Rubia adjusts her hood, assuming he can't speak. He remembers. In this timeline, she'll soon be killed by bandits, and tells himself it isn't his problem. A flash of his mistress dying floods his mind, and his resolve shifts. He can't let that happen again. He steels himself, decision made. I've changed my mind. He'll intervene. The skeleton scoops Rubia over his shoulder and bolts, shocking her. How rude. But he's clearly taking her away from the coming bandit attack. The skeleton realizes he's back in the past, and that Rubia, the necromancer who first raised him, will soon be killed by bandits. He decides to intervene, grabs Rubia, and runs to get her away from danger. He speaks for the first time, telling her clearly, I'll protect you. Rubia is shocked that the skeleton can talk and is vowing to guard her. A blue prompt appears. S-Class scenario. Ray Rubia is starting. Carrying Rubia, the skeleton repeats her name, confirming the target of the scenario. Another window opens with her info. Name. Ray Rubia, Necromancer LV.1, Health 6, Strength 5, Agility 6, Wisdom 12, Goodwill 3. Rubia tries to speak. Nervous, excuse. She wriggles off his shoulder, asking to be let down. The skeleton hushes her. Danger nearby. Shh. We have to hide. Hoofbeats approach. Horses on the road. Armored riders gallop past their hiding spot. Rubia gasps quietly. The skeleton watches, tense, confirming these are the ones who'd kill her in the original timeline. The skeleton realizes he misremembered. These riders didn't pass by randomly. They're actively hunting Rubia. From their gear and uniforms, he identifies them as professional mercenaries, not bandits. The mercs are already scouting the area, saying they don't see anyone yet. The mercenaries stop searching and leave. The skeleton suspects they were specifically after Rubia. Rubia relaxes, thinking the danger passed. The skeleton asks her directly if she's a fugitive. Rubia denies being a fugitive, claiming she's the rightful heir of a lord. Arrow suddenly strikes her, ambush from hidden attackers. The skeleton is shocked as Rubia is hit. A hidden mercenary archer, who only pretended to leave, ambushes them. He shoots, and the arrow hits Rubia in the back/shoulder. The skeleton realizes it was a setup, and she's now wounded. The mercenary leader steps out, mocks Rubia's legitimate heir claim, and reveals who he is. He says he's the angel of death hired by Lord Hyun to hunt her. He threatens to take her head as proof before returning. Rubia is wounded and cornered. Skeleton ambushes the merc leader from behind with a boulder. Rubia, wounded, steadies herself as he moves to shield her. He steps forward, hand out, taking point to fight the mercs. The skeleton kneels and offers protection. Rubia, startled but moved, looks at him. She reaches out, forming a tentative pact with the skeleton. He urges Rubia to run. The merc leader ambushes, smashing the skeleton's head with a heavy mace. Rubia freezes, shocked, as the blow lands. Rubia stares in shock as the fight stalls. The merc leader, bleeding from the earlier boulder hit, steadies himself and eyes them warily. The skeleton lies on the ground with a cracked skull, temporarily paralyzed, while the merc marvels at how strong this skeleton is. The skeleton thinks, he just got a second chance and can't waste it. The skeleton, skull cracked, can't move and fears his second chance will be wasted. The merc leader turns his attention to Rubia, moving in on her first. The skeleton's vision goes black. Again, I failed to protect anyone. Cut to the rainy forest sky as the scene shifts. The skeleton jolts awake, intact again. He's back in the stone coffin, same rainy night. Realization hits. The scene just reset. He's looping back to the start. The scene restarts. Rubia appears again, calling out undead being and introducing herself. The skeleton realizes it's the same moment as before. The timeline has looped. He's shocked. Another chance to change what happens. The fight reaches its climax. Blood splatters as the skeleton lands the killing blow. The mercenary leader collapses to his knees and dies. In the rain, the skeleton stands with a bloody sword. Both mercs are down. He confirms to himself, the mission succeeded. In the rain, he reflects. After 3 deaths, he finally protected someone. He looks at his hands, taking in the wind and his still undead body. Flash of the earlier defeat, skull cracked, but he notes he's raised again and fine, confirming his looped resurrection. He respawns at the same spot, memories fully intact. Noticed everything reset, except a new system prompt appears. Memorial reward unlocked. Choose 1 perk, plus 20 goodwill, Rubia, or plus 40 blunt resistance. After the loop reward appears, the skeleton recalls how the mace crushed his skull. He weighs the memorial perks and thinks about preparation. Main point, he's about to choose blunt resistance to survive those heavy hits next time. He selects the plus 40 blunt resistance perk on the memorial screen, hits confirm. Buff applied, he decides there's no time to waste. He quickly turns to move out and act before the mercenaries strike again. Loop knowledge kicking in. He won't get tricked again. He addresses Rubia directly. She's shocked he talks. He points to cover and orders her to hide behind the rock, setting up an ambush. Rubia is startled. The skeleton warns that mercenaries are on the way and tells her to hide. She hesitates, weighing whether to trust him. Rubia questions how he knows enemies are coming. The skeleton gives no explanation, just insists he knows. She's confused, but starting to believe him. The skeleton senses the mercenaries are near and urges urgency. Rubia realizes something's happening. He prepares to fight and asks her to hand over the dagger at her waist. The skeleton declares he'll protect Rubia and readies for a fight. Rubia hesitates, then trusts him. She draws her dagger and hands it to the skeleton. Rubia ducks behind the rocks as instructed. The skeleton readies the dagger, eyes on the road. The mercenary trio returns down the rainy path. Leader on horseback, archer and scout beside him. Ambush setup complete. The skeleton prepares to strike first. The mercs halt. The archer is told to scout. He loads his crossbow and heads into the trees. The leader approaches the stone coffin, assuming Rubia slipped away, unaware the skeleton is lying in wait beside it. The skeleton lies in wait beside the coffin, hand on the dagger. He rises silently behind the hooded scout. One clean slash, blood sprays. The scout is taken out instantly. The scout collapses in a pool of blood. First target down. Blue pop-ups. You leveled up multiple times. Kill confirmed. Stats rising. The skeleton looks toward the road. Next target is the hammer-wielding leader. The hammer-wielding leader smashes the skeleton's head. The skeleton staggers, but doesn't break. Blunt resistance perk activates. The leader is confused that the blow didn't finish him. The leader swings again, puzzled the first blow didn't kill the skeleton. Blunt resistance reduced the damage, but the skull is still cracked. Despite mitigation, the leader readies another heavy strike to finish it. The hammer leader winds up to crush the skeleton for good. The skeleton recalls dying to them before and decides he must eliminate both to protect Rubia. He opens the system screen and spends his new level-up points, all into agility, to move faster for the next exchange. Third life. The skeleton takes down the hammer-wielding leader. A hidden crossbowman snipes him, arrow straight through the skull. He dies again. System resets him once more. Fourth life begins, with all memories and a new plan to counter the archer. The skeleton has revived stronger. He's faster and more agile now. He blitzes the hooded crossbowman and takes him out before the man can react. The heavy hammer leader turns to find his partner dead and the skeleton standing behind him, ready for the next fight. The hammer brute freezes, shocked that the weak skeleton is still coming. The skeleton explodes forward, a bone-white blur, closing the gap before he can ready the swing. It slips inside the arc, ducks low, and carves across his flank. The big man staggers, guard blown open for the finish. The skeleton flashes the borrowed sword, swift, clean arc. He slips inside the hammerman's guard, blade tracing a low curve. Homework. Minion dies and Sean. The mercenary's eyes glaze over, body buckles, fight over. The skeleton warrior defeats both mercenaries and saves Rubia. He confirms his death reset ability. Whenever he dies, he respawns back at the moment he was first summoned, memories intact. System screen glows, rule confirmed. Every reset starts at LV.1, but all skills/stats carry over. New memorial, perk pops, plus 20 likability with necromancers. Learns he gains a new ability for each new experience before death. He worries how many revives he actually has. He peers out of the tomb/casket, calls into the dark, checking if anyone or she is nearby. In a cave, Rubia is explaining something to the skeleton. He zones out, then asks her to repeat while leading with a torch. They start moving deeper together. He protects, she guides. Mood. Brief annoyance from Rubia, but trust/party dynamic is forming. Rubia shares her backstory. Daughter of Lord Ray. Mother died at childbirth. She was raised by a just, principled father. The realm shifts. New warmonger king ramps up drafts and rewards aggressive nobles. Moderate lords push back, including her father. Then disaster. Her father is found slain, slumped in blood. Everything starts to spiral from there. Rubia remembers finding her father's corpse. The shock hits. She breaks down, clutching her head and crying. Cut back to the cave. She's still in tears, mourning as she tells the story. In the cave, Skeleton recalls the timeline. He knows a huge war is about to start. The king will invade to unify the lands, lasting 9 years. Soon after, the 16 devils will resurrect and plunge the world into worse chaos. Rubia's plight is just one casualty of these coming events. He treats it as regrettable, but this foreknowledge sets his plan to protect her and act accordingly. In the cave, the skeleton reassures Rubia and promises to protect her. He decides he must get stronger to keep that promise. His deeper goal surfaces, survive and grow until he can one day reunite with his former mistress, the red-horned woman. Torch flares up, plans set to move. Skeleton leads Rubia through the cave toward the exit. Outside, the tension breaks. They share a light laugh, bond strengthening after survival. Footsteps hurry toward the cave mouth. A burst of white light floods the tunnel as they reach the exit. They step outside, revealing a high, snowy mountain pass stretching below. The skeleton stares at the snowy mountains, totally unfazed. A snowball smacks him right in the face. The girl laughs, teases him for being emotionless. Vibe turns light as they keep moving. Close view of the skeleton's face. He looks blank, reminding us he doesn't really show emotions. Wider view among trees. The skeleton and the girl continue walking through the mountains while birds call in the background. They move onto a higher, snowy path. The girl walks up the slope in the cold as they head toward the next area. The girl climbs a steep, snowy slope. She asks about the route. The skeleton confirms. Crossing this mountain is the fastest way to Yublum. She's tired but keeps moving. She suggests buying armor in Yublum, so the skeleton won't stand out. The skeleton realizes he'd draw attention as bare bones and agrees to get armor. Her boot slips on the icy rock while they're climbing. The skeleton immediately dives forward as she loses balance. He grabs her hand mid-fall on the cliffside and stops her from dropping. The girl slips on the icy cliff. The skeleton grabs her wrist and anchors himself. She dangles over the slope, startled. He hauls her up on a safer ground. Both end up panting on the snow. She's safe. Rubia smiles, grateful that the skeleton keeps saving her. The skeleton picks up a brown cloak from the ground. He puts the cloak on to hide his bones and says they're almost there. Time to keep moving. The skeleton steadies Rubia on the rocks, slings the brown cloak over his shoulder, and leads the way up. They continue trekking through the rocky pass together. They reach a vantage point and spot the town ahead. Yublum is in sight. They arrive at the outskirts of a walled town and pause, relieved after the climb. An establishing shot of the castle towers shows their destination up close. They walk toward the gate. Rubia steps in front to take the lead and signals she'll handle things while the skeleton follows. They reach the city gates. Since a skeleton can't stroll into town, Rubia says she'll go in alone and handle things quickly. The skeleton asks if she'll be okay. Rubia confidently says yes. This is nothing compared to how much he's helped, and prepares to enter while he waits outside. Rubia waves goodbye and jogs toward the city gate, asking the skeleton to wait outside. She raises her hand one last time as she enters, disappearing past the wall. The skeleton stays behind with the cloak over his shoulder, calmly standing guard and waiting for her return. The skeleton waits outside the town. Hours turn into days as the sky shifts from blue to sunset. He keeps waiting because she promised to return. No one comes. A sudden sound in the bushes makes him snap his head toward the forest, alert. Near the castle wall at sunset, the skeleton keeps waiting and hears someone nearby. He turns his head toward the sound. An old robed man, looks like a monk/attendant, trundles up with a handcart, grumbling to himself as he stops by a secluded spot. The skeleton edges closer, watching the man and the cart, sensing something suspicious about what he's about to leave there. A memory surfaces, Rubia crying in the cave. The skeleton stiffens and turns, alert, as if something nearby caught his attention. Another memory overlays, Rubia smiling beside him, reminding him why he keeps protecting her. The skeleton takes a step forward, leaving his waiting spot. He remembers Rubia waving goodbye, the promise to be right back. Evening falls. He steels himself and moves toward the city. He reaches a building interior and finds Rubia collapsed on the floor. Wide shot. The skeleton waits outside the castle till sunset, alone. Close up, he admits he failed to protect Rubia again. Overlay image. Rubia and the horned mistress appear together, hinting the real danger tied to Rubia. The skeleton hides in the bushes and notices two townsmen walking by. He listens in. The men complain about the trouble in town. They gossip that a woman has committed suicide and mention how the leader had beaten someone brutally, saying of course the Lord would be furious. Two men are walking and talking about a girl, as if she were goods to sell. They continue down the path. The skeleton is hidden nearby, listening and watching them pass. The skeleton thinks over what he heard and understands they're slavers and the suicide claim doesn't add up. He decides to focus on them. Two men walk in the forest, looking around. They're discussing where the leader left the girl. The hooded one admits he didn't get to do anything and hints he still wants to. He licks his lips, showing bad intent. The other man calls him crazy and turns away toward town, saying he's going back to the inn to settle their stay. The hooded thug searches through the bushes, looking around. He notices something and grins. He's found his target. He steps out of the brush and stands over the unconscious Rubia, clearly intending to take advantage. The hooded man drops his sword to the ground and starts unbuckling his belt. He smirks, clearly planning to assault the unconscious Rubia. As he leans over her, the skeleton arrives from behind, closing in to stop him. The skeleton quietly picks up the fallen sword. He rushes in and locks the hooded man from behind, pinning his arms. The blade goes in. The man screams as he's wounded and loses control. The skeleton pins the thug from behind and squeezes his throat to stop him struggling. He tightens the hold and demands answers. The thug chokes and freezes. With a calm warning, the skeleton makes it clear the man will die if he resists, forcing him to talk. The skeleton tightens his grip and makes the thug understand he's in control. The thug throws his hands up, trying to comply and talk his way out. Pain hits. He grimaces and struggles as the skeleton keeps the pressure on. The thug, panicking, blurts out that the innkeeper delivered the girl to their group. The skeleton presses on, wanting to know who actually hurt her. While holding the thug at knife point beside the unconscious girl, the skeleton demands to know why she was dumped here. The skeleton asks the man if what he was doing was also on someone's orders. The man panics. The skeleton pricks/stabs his shoulder to pressure him. The man admits it. The guard captain/leader gave the order. They were just following it. The hooded man collapses to the ground, sweating and grimacing in pain. He looks up, stunned, finally realizing the attacker is a walking skeleton. The skeleton stands behind him with a bloodied sword while the man lies prone and shaking, badly injured and unable to get up. The thug finally looks up and realizes the attacker is a skeleton. The skeleton stands over the scene, checking Rubia's condition while keeping the bloody sword ready beside the thug. The thug, injured and panicking, grimaces on the ground as he tries to move. The skeleton looks over the scene, thinking about what to do next. He checks on the unconscious girl lying on the ground. Hearing movement in the bushes/area, he stands up and starts moving, ready to act or go find help/answers. The skeleton kneels beside the unconscious girl, thinking over the clue he got. The inn's owner was involved. Cut to night in town. Someone in a hood walks through the quiet streets toward the buildings, likely the inn. Back in the woods, the skeleton gently checks the girl's face to see if she's okay and still breathing. The skeleton, now cloaked, strikes a man in the gut, dropping him instantly. The man tumbles across the floor while the cloaked figure hurries deeper into the building. The innkeeper opens a door, curious about the late-night commotion. The cloaked figure steps inside the storeroom. The innkeeper is on the floor, backing away, clearly shaken. The innkeeper drops to his knees, covering his head. He pleads that he already told everything and claims he doesn't know more. The hooded figure stands over him and, in a calm voice, asks exactly what it is he doesn't know. The hooded person asks the innkeeper about the two men who pursued the lord of Arast's daughter. The innkeeper says he doesn't know anything. The innkeeper explains he's not capable of hurting those men. The hooded person says they don't recognize the names Arast or organization, showing they're unfamiliar with those terms. The skeleton forces the innkeeper's head to the floor, pinning him with a bony hand. The man yelps as the floor cracks under the slam. Terror floods his face. Shaking, he looks up and realizes the hooded figure isn't from the organization. He's just been caught and is ready to talk. The innkeeper, shaken, asks if the hooded stranger was part of the girl's group. The hooded skeleton says he was, adds that she died, and calmly asks why. The innkeeper explains, 3 days ago the lord's daughter came to the inn. Soon after, city guards arrived and dragged her away. The skeleton grips the sword hilt firmly. He drives the blade down into the floor beside the innkeeper, pinning him in place and warning him. The innkeeper scrambles up in panic, shouting as he realizes he's in trouble. The sword swings past the innkeeper's face, stopping inches away. He freezes, eyes wide, realizing he's outmatched. The hooded skeleton leans in and asks plainly, "Why did she die?" The innkeeper panics and promises to explain if he's spared. The man clutches his wounded leg on the floor, crying out. He's in pain, but ready to talk. "You." The skeleton restrains the innkeeper and asks what happened. The innkeeper admits he handed the girl to the city guards. The guard captain supplies girls to the Necron Society as slaves. The skeleton notes the girl only came to buy armor, showing she was an ordinary victim. The mark on the innkeeper's neck activates. A snake-like parasite pushes out. It clamps over his mouth, forcing him to deny everything while he panics. The skeleton notes the name Necron Society, realizing this group is behind the girls being taken. A strange mark on the innkeeper's neck wriggles and opens up like something alive under the skin. A purple, slug-like creature pushes out his mouth. He panics, denying he revealed anything. The creature coils around his throat and tightens, choking him while he begs for mercy. The skeleton leans over the innkeeper and notes, calmly, that the thing on his neck looks like a curse. The mark on the man's neck writhes and tightens when Necron Society is mentioned, showing it reacts to forbidden talk. The skeleton connects the dots. The two thugs from earlier in Yublam's guard seem tied to the Necron Society. There's cooperation between them. The skeleton connects the dots. The two thugs from earlier in Yublam's guard seem tied to the Necron Society. There's cooperation between them. He looks around the storage room and notices a complete suit of armor on a stand. He walks up and places his hands on the armor, clearly planning to use it to conceal himself and get stronger/protected. He recalls Rubia cheerfully suggesting they buy him a suit of armor in town. Panel 2. Clothes on the skeleton's face under the hood. He's resolved and serious. He thinks, I need to get stronger, strong enough that no one can outmatch me, while the injured innkeeper lies on the floor and the armor stand waits ahead. He steps past the wounded innkeeper, thinking he must grow stronger so he doesn't lose anyone else. Now wearing the suit of armor, he walks out through the bright doorway, ready to move on. Close-up of the skull notices a blade coming in front of him. The armored skeleton, now in a full suit, brings his sword down in a heavy strike, smashing into the opponent and the ground. Debris flies up. We get a close shot of the helmeted face, showing the blow's impact as stones and dust scatter. The armored figure stands over a severed skull, sword in hand, steadying himself. He lets out a breath, calm after the clash. He walks deeper into the cave corridor, confirming it's the Spectre's charnel house. A rattling skeleton steps out in the cave, holding a sword and a small round shield, ready to block the path. The armored man notes, a bit annoyed, that this dungeon even has skeletons. The armored man calls out, "Hey," getting the skeleton's attention from short distance across the corridor. The armored figure removes his helmet, showing a skull, and calmly tells the dungeon skeleton he's also a skeleton and doesn't want to fight. The dungeon skeleton can only groan and gesture, MC reflects that before meeting the succubus he was like this, unable to speak. Seeing there's no point in a fight, the MC decides this place isn't suitable and thinks he should look for another dungeon. The armored skeleton turns to leave the cave. The other skeleton stays back. A glowing system notice appears, signaling the dungeon boss has spawned. The armored skeleton stops. The cave trembles and a loud rumble starts. The armored skeleton looks up, alert. Inside the cave, a tall horned skeleton boss charges up blue energy and swings at the small shield and sword skeleton. The armored skeleton rushes forward with a hand out, trying to stop the fight. The boss slams the ground with that blue charge strike, shattering bones and knocking debris upward. The armored skeleton notices the horned boss crush a regular skeleton and is shocked. The horned skeleton boss screams and powers up, blue light flaring from its eyes and ribcage. Two regular skeleton soldiers charge forward with shields and swords, while the glowing boss rushes behind them. The armored skeleton lowers his visor, calmly signaling he's ready. Two dungeon skeletons rush him from the front, leaping with shield and sword raised. He answers with one broad slash. The arc of the strike sweeps through both enemies and sends their bones flying. The armored skeleton pauses in a low stance, noticing something off in the cave. A huge mace sweeps in from the side and knocks him off his footing, sliding him across the ground. He gets up in front of the dungeon boss, a towering horned skeleton with a blue glow, ready to engage. The armored skeleton sets his stance and brings his sword up to engage. He rushes toward the tall horned skeleton boss, which lifts a huge hammer to strike. The boss swings the hammer and slams him, knocking his body forward along the ground. The armored skeleton ducks under the giant's swing and cuts across the boss's shin with a fast, low arc. The horned skeleton boss staggers, blue energy flickers, and ribs jolt from the hit. The armored skeleton straightens and readies the blade again, confident to press the attack. The armored skeleton brings his forearm up to guard as the horned skeleton winds up another strike. The blow lands with a burst. He's blasted backward across the cave floor. The horned skeleton surges forward, ribs blazing blue, shield and mace ready as it rushes him. The armored skeleton plants his sword in the ground and drops to one knee, steadying himself before standing back up. The horned boss skeleton rears back with its mace, blue soul light flaring in its ribs and eyes. As the strike comes down, the armored skeleton steps inside the swing and grabs the mace's shaft near the boss's head, halting the blow. The armored skeleton leaps up and lands on the giant skeleton's horn, crouching on its skull. Close-up of the armored skeleton's helmeted face as he steadies himself, preparing an attack. From atop the horn, he raises his sword with both hands, aiming to drive it straight down into the giant skeleton's head. And into the boss's skull cap, cracks spider out, and blue energy sparks around the impact. The horned skeleton reels backward, blue soul light spilling from its ribs and eyes, while the armored skeleton drops down and rolls clear. Floating system windows pop up beside the armored skeleton, showing multiple level up notices as he looks at them. The armored skeleton holds his helmet and looks at the floating system window, realizing he just leveled up multiple times. Close up of his skull, he notices another prompt appearing. A large quest window pops up. Swing your sword 10,000 times. 0/10,000. Reward: Swordsmanship LV.1. He prepares to confirm it. The armored skeleton tests the quest by taking a stance and giving his sword a single, clean swing. A blue quest window updates, counting the swing as 1/10,000. Realizing the task is simple repetition, he thinks it through and decides he can grind the swings to raise his swordsmanship. The armored skeleton plants his feet and starts repetitive sword swings. He notes he doesn't need food or sleep, so the grind won't be a problem. He walks deeper into the cave corridor toward the bright exit. With the boss gone, the dungeon sits quiet and empty. He pauses, looking back over his shoulder. He considers staying here to train and finish the swing count quest. A party arrives at the dungeon entrance. Someone points out the spot. The armored man reassures a nervous companion as they ready themselves to enter. The blonde leader suggests they head inside, and the group prepares to move in. A party steps into a damp dungeon. Boots echo. It's clearly their first run. The armored guy takes the lead, talking big. He says it's full of skeletons and too risky for newbies, but claims they'll be fine with him around. One of the girls hesitates. She admits she's scared of getting hurt, and the team slows a little. The knight laughs it off. He tells them to relax and just watch. If anything happens, he'll handle it. He kneels, opens a bag, and flashes a bunch of red potions. Says he'll treat any injuries. The red-haired girl is impressed. Those potions aren't cheap, and he has a lot. The red-haired girl gushes, clearly dazzled by the potions and the attention. The knight smirks, hinting he'll do his best if they cheer for him. The blonde watches with a flat look. She's clocked his act, but lets the redhead keep flattering him for now. The blonde notices his bag loaded with red potions and expensive gear. You can see the calculation in her eyes. She watches the redhead cozy up to him and quietly positions herself behind the group, ready to move when a fight breaks out. Close up on her smirk. Plan locked. Let him draw aggro, then slip in and clean out the loot. The blonde fakes a sweet smile, acting grateful while clinging to the knight for protection. Rainnolz slides in close to the knight and nudges the blonde to lead, reminding her she's the scout. The blonde laughs it off and moves ahead, but her eyes harden. She's already planning to use them and dump them later. The two women start bickering, and the knight steps in, asking them not to fight. He shows his mace and explains this dungeon is for beginners with weak skeletons. He says he's prepared for the boss. He thinks about doing well to look good, then looks around and notices there aren't any skeletons nearby. They pause in a quiet corridor. It's empty, even though they expected enemies. Rainnolz looks around, thinking it's been a while with still nothing showing up. The knight waves it off and urges them deeper, saying the front is always quiet. Inside, he's puzzled by how cleared out it feels. Rainnolz points ahead, noticing something on the ground. A huge pile of broken bones and gear, horn skull, shield, and a heavy mace, lies smashed in the tunnel. All three stand around it, seeing it's from a giant skeleton. The passage is quiet and empty. The knight freezes, surprised to find the boss skeleton already dead. The red-haired adventurer kneels and checks the giant skull while the others look on. The knight scratches his head, realizing someone came first. The blonde frowns, annoyed at their bad luck. The blonde adventurer quietly pulls a knife, ready to strike while the knight is distracted. Heavy footsteps approach. A tall figure steps into the cavern, blocking their way. The knight whirls around, mace up, demanding to know who the newcomer is. A full-armored, purple knight steps out of the tunnel, swords in hand. The male knight points his mace at him and asks if he killed the giant skeleton. The two women watch. They notice the newcomer doesn't speak and wonder if he's a monster, maybe even a skeleton inside that armor. The knight snaps back, scoffing at the idea it's a skeleton in armor and motioning for the others to look. The purple-armored figure stands firm and declares the dungeon under his control, telling them to leave. Hearing a human voice, the knight loosens up, fakes a laugh, and decides it's smarter not to pick a fight. The knight suggests they leave. The party turns to go, but Rainnolz isn't having it. Rainnolz steps forward and points at the armored stranger, acting like the cave is theirs and scolding him for keeping the helmet on. She ups the demand. Hand over anything he looted from our dungeon. The armored figure watches in silence while the knight awkwardly tries to calm Rainnolz down. The blonde girl turns on the charm, eyes sparkling, and asks the knight to back her up and put the purple-armored stranger in his place. The knight glances over, sweating a little. He's unsure and clearly nervous. Trying to act tough, the knight points at the purple figure and shouts about manners, demanding he remove his helmet before talking. The blonde smiles, pleased he took her side. The armored stranger nods and reaches for his helmet, agreeing to remove it. Behind him, the blonde adventurer smirks, already plotting to use the knight and steal his loot after a fight. As the helmet starts coming off, the women gasp and the knight jerks in shock. Something unexpected is revealed. The blonde adventurer freezes and gasps, eyes wide. The armored figure takes off the helmet. Underneath is a bear skull. It's an armored skeleton. The party steps back, stunned. They finally accept it isn't a man at all, but a skeleton guarding the dungeon. The armored figure removes his helmet. He's a talking skeleton. He asks them to leave so he can get back to whatever he's doing. The red-haired adventurer senses danger and tries to pull the team back. The knight ignores her and laughs it off. The knight decides to fight anyway. He loosens up with quick warm-up moves, spinning his mace and stepping forward to engage. The skeleton knight stands calmly, helmet in hand, telling them to back off. The bulky Sir Knight charges in, raising his mace with a wild grin. He thinks this is his moment to look cool and impress the women as he winds up for a big swing. The knight shows off a flail that starts glowing with a holy shine, proud of his anti-skeleton weapon. The armored skeleton tilts his head slightly, as if giving a last warning. The knight charges and brings the flail down with all his strength, but the skeleton steps in and raises his shoulder to meet the blow. The knight's heavy swing lands, but the skeleton slips in close. The mace is smothered against its shoulder. The blow dies there. Black-gloved hands snap up. The skeleton catches the chain mid-air and twists, locking the weapon tight. With the flail neutralized, the skeleton steps in and slides its spear across the knight's waist, pinning him at full reach, balance broken. The skeleton knight leans in, calm but firm, telling them to go. He's clearly not interested in a fight. The blonde adventurer freezes, staring at him in surprise. Her anger slips. She looks more curious than hostile now. The Sir Knight is face down on the cave floor, groaning. The red-haired woman rushes toward him while the armored skeleton watches from a short distance. Close up, the knight lifts his head a little, sweating and dazed, barely able to speak. The skeleton tilts his skull, studying the fallen man with a calm as if deciding what to do next. The red-haired woman freezes, clearly scared. Panel 2. She turns away and runs down the tunnel. She slows and glances back, thinking. She pulls out a dagger and grips it, deciding what to do. A red silhouetted figure is pierced through the torso. Blood and fragments burst outward. The blonde adventurer slows and stares, shocked, while the armored skeleton turns its head toward her. The skeleton calmly raises its sword into a ready stance, blade angled forward, preparing to strike. The blonde thief faces the armored skeleton, judging the situation. She suddenly drops to her knees and begs for mercy. The armored skeleton pauses, taken aback by the plea. The blonde girl introduces herself as Rena from the TNT Guild and offers assassination, theft, and information services. The armored skeleton connects the dots and states she aimed for the red-haired woman on purpose. The red-haired woman lies on the ground with a knife in her back. Rena claims she handled a problem for him and asks him to treat it as a favor. The skeleton knight pauses, realizing he hadn't meant to kill the red-haired woman. He questions the blonde about why she struck her own teammate. The blonde casually explains herself, acting unfazed. She makes it clear the red-haired woman wasn't her ally. The skeleton knight understands. She lured the red-haired woman here to eliminate her from the start. The situation turns from party squabble to a planned betrayal. The skeleton knight glances at the red-haired woman lying on the ground and pieces together that these two came from a thieves' guild. He turns to the crouching blonde and basically offers a deal. Stop bothering him, take what she needs, and leave alive. She perks. He shuts it down, says he doesn't need help, and waves her off, urging her to get out of the dungeon quickly. The skeleton knight pauses. He asks if the girl also trades in information. Rena nods quickly and says she does. She offers to answer anything. The skeleton knight thinks for a beat, then asks about a group, the Necron Society. Rena thinks for a moment and says she knows a bit about the Necron Society. The skeleton tells her to share it, and Rena stops him, adding there's one condition. The skeleton asks what the condition is. The skeleton knight presses a sword to Rena's throat, shutting down her condition. He keeps the blade there while she kneels. She tries to explain that only her guild can access the info. She points out that, looking like a skeleton, he can't just walk into a guild to buy it. The skeleton knight pauses and thinks it through. If he kills her, he won't get the information he needs. He agrees to hear terms. She asks to become his ally in exchange for the info. A glowing system screen appears in front of him, notifying an ally request, and he looks surprised. A blue quest window appears in front of the skeleton, outlining a new scenario tied to Rainnolz. He studies the window, thinking that information is what he lacks most right now. Rainnolz, cautious, checks if he's paying attention as he turns toward her. Rainnolz pitches herself as an ally who can provide info and help with training. The skeleton knight grabs Rainnolz by the neck, cutting her off. He lifts her one-handed and calls out her actions, using and killing her teammate for personal gain. The skeleton knight refuses the ally idea, saying he doesn't want a knife in his neck later. Rainnolz, still held by the throat, forces a laugh and tries to talk her way out. She says she's closer to his kind than to the other humans, hinting she's just as ruthless. He drops her to the ground. He walks up while she catches her breath, asking what she meant. She explains people only value her body, not who she is, and questions calling them fellow humans. Rainnolz tells the skeleton knight that people only see him as a monster to crush, just like how people judge her. He looks down, then asks if she means they're in the same situation. Rainnolz begins sharing what she knows, starting with the name, the Necron Society. Rainnolz explains the Necron Society, a secret syndicate involved in drugs, contract killing, human trafficking, anything for profit. It's protected by powerful nobles, so it's huge. She adds that no one knows the boss or the headquarters. She can't share more. Only higher-ranked guild members have that level of info. Pointing to the beaten knight, she makes a proposal. Have Sir Knight hunt wicked humans the same way humans hunt monsters. Rainnolz pitches a deal. She'll lure her assassination targets into this dungeon so the knight can defeat them and gain experience. She explains the exchange. Her rank in the guild will rise, and in return she'll share the information he wants. It's framed as a win-win. The skeleton knight pauses, thinking through her proposal. The skeleton knight pauses and asks for clear confirmation about her offer. The blonde girl looks down for a moment, then commits to helping, even if it means killing other humans. She looks up with a calm smile and states plainly that she hates humans. The skeleton knight considers everything and gives a short nod. A simple text bubble appears, confirming the decision. The deal is accepted. A red screen warns. 3 intruders entered the dungeon. The skeleton knight dashes in and cuts one intruder down with a single swing. He settles into a ready stance, sword up, prepared for the others. Hooded archer draws his bow, aiming straight ahead in the cave. He's struck mid-draw and freezes, losing control. The archer drops to the ground with a blade in his back. Farther down the tunnel, Rainnolz stands with her arm extended, the throw clearly hers. Rainnolz uses a pull skill on the archer. A second bandit strikes Rainnolz from the side. A third bandit pins Rainnolz with a boot and raises his sword. The red-haired man rushes Rainnolz and lifts his sword to strike. His swing is stopped midair by an outside hit. He freezes, shocked. The sword flies from his hand and sticks in the ground beside Rainnolz as she falls back, unharmed. The armored skeleton finishes off the intruders and stands there with his sword. The fight's done, and he's back in control of the dungeon. Rainnolz comes over right after. She plays it cool, keeping their new working-together plan on track. A system screen pops up. He levels up. His dungeon affinity climbs to 19.5%, and his swordsmanship reaches level 4. They look over the hall. Rainnolz says it's big because she lured many intruders in. The skeleton knight turns, about to respond. Rainnolz cuts him off, telling him not to lecture her about fellow humans. In the cave, Rainnolz explains her plan. Contracts target criminals, and bribe-protected scum slip past guards. She lists their crimes and insists they all deserve payback. The skeleton knight kneels at the loot cloth and notices 2 books among the items. The skeleton knight picks up a worn book titled The Unsightly Magician. He flips through the pages, scanning quick notes about magicians and their privileges. He shuts the book, thinking it reads like the author holds a grudge against magicians, then sets it aside. The Skeleton Knight checks the book's cover and reads the name Kevin Ashton. A system window appears beside him. The window displays, "Your wisdom rose by 1." The Skeleton Knight drops to the ground and starts digging through the scattered loot and books. Rena steps closer, watching in confusion. He settles cross-legged with one book in hand and gathers the rest around him. He sorts through the pile of books and finds only 2 that increase his stat. He checks the covers and notes both are written by Kevin Ashton, so he links the stat gain to that author. He concludes wisdom can be raised by reading and considers using books, especially Kevin Ashton's, to keep boosting it. Rena edges in beside him while he reads. She moves even closer. He shifts away, keeping space. She offers to go check the nearby village for more books. He lets her handle it and asks for titles by Kevin Ashton or any books that boost stats or skills. She nods and gets ready to leave quietly. The Skeleton Knight asks Rena for nearby dungeon options. Rena thinks for a moment and prepares to answer. Rena lists 4 within a week's travel. E-Class, Arid Underground Cemetery. D-Class, Ruins of Spider's Vault. C-Class, Twisted Misty Zone. C-Class, Dirty Jungle. Rena stretches and yawns. He asks if a week's travel means on foot. She says yes. He thinks through the plan. This cave is F-Class, so the next target should be an E-Class dungeon. He adds one more task for Rena. On her next trip to the village, handle an errand he has in mind. Rena dozes off and leans against him. He notices she's worn out from the village runs and lets her sleep. He carefully adjusts, grabs his sword, and resumes quiet drills while keeping watch. He stops training and realizes he's more tired than he thought. His vision narrows. He decides to put practice on hold and drifts towards sleep. A system screen appears. 182 nights spent in the dungeon. Dungeon affinity passes 20%. Note that he's succumbing to human nature, warning that the dungeon is trying to devour him. He wakes up confused, realizing he somehow fell asleep in the dungeon. A horned woman leans in and casually asks if his rest was good. He notices he's lying across her lap, his bones sprawled out as she holds his skull in place. He jolts upright in bones-only form. The succubus is seated on the mat, watching. She remarks that she may have woken him from a deep sleep. He waves a hand, hurriedly denying it, and tries to explain. He notices a dark mark on his bone and staggers, trying to steady himself. He realizes his armor is gone and stands there as a bare skeleton, confused. The succubus steps in, wraps him in a reassuring hug, and calms him down. The succubus takes the Skeleton Knight's hand and leads him deeper into the dungeon, as if inviting him to stay with her. Footsteps echo in the corridor, approaching. The Skeleton Knight, now back in armor, walks forward alone into the tunnel, leaving the scene behind. Rena wakes up on the cave floor. She sits up and calls out for the Skeleton Knight. The cave around her is empty. She looks around and realizes he's gone, leaving her alone in the dungeon. Rena wakes up, looks around the cave, and calls out for the knight. A hand gently pats the Skeleton Knight's head. The succubus sits on a rock with the Skeleton Knight resting on her lap while she reads a book beside him. She has a skull on her lap and gently pats it. He thinks the whole thing might have been a dream. His hand moves a little while he admits it felt too real to be just a dream. He lets it go, deciding it doesn't matter, and settles down. The succubus pauses mid-reading. The skeleton thinks it's enough that she's safe. She closes the book and asks if the story is boring. The skeleton waves his hands and says it isn't boring, just something else on his mind. The skeleton sits up. The succubus asks if they should continue discussing his dream. She recaps the point he reached and asks what the girl named Rena was like. Cut to the cave entrance in daylight. Rena appears outside, arms up, marking the start of his story about her. Rena wakes up outside the cave and stretches her arms. She checks around the cave entrance, doesn't see the knight, and starts walking toward the tunnel. She hears movement behind her and turns her head. A squad forms up at a command call. Boots snap to attention. The captain addresses the group, saying this isn't a routine dungeon job. He explains, the place, Spectre's charnel house, is meant for beginners, but for 6 months many adventurers and villagers who headed there have vanished. He rallies the team for a serious investigation and subjugation. The captain continues the briefing, stressing this raid is under the Blue Lion Templars. Rainnolz listens from the tree lean. Rainnolz realizes the situation is bad and decides she needs to act fast. Back in the dungeon, the skeleton knight acknowledges the update while sitting with the succubus, taking in the news. The succubus glances at the skeleton while commenting about the girl's bold move. The skeleton considers her behavior. The succubus waits for his answer. The succubus leans in and challenges his choice, asking if he'll abandon the girl. A dark memory flashes. Ominous words hang in the void. The skeleton jolts, sensing something wrong. A red system alert appears. The dungeon detects a single intruder. Close on the skull. He narrows his focus, scanning the tunnels and preparing to move. Flashbacks hit him, knights raiding, the succubus suffering his own defeat. Memories flicker one after another. He clenches with resolve, blaming the knights. The hesitation is gone. He readies his sword and staff together, vowing to protect her this time and moving to confront the intruder. Rainnolz spots the knight sitting on a ledge and runs toward him. She reaches him and urges him to move. No time to sit around. The knight locks in, eyes gleaming. He gets the message. Time to pack up and leave. Rainnolz runs in and warns that soldiers are right outside the cave. The skeleton knight tightens his grip on the sword and says he'll protect her. Rainnolz pauses, hands half raised, asking what's going on as he prepares to move. He tightens his grip on the sword and draws it. He dashes forward and swings, the blade grazing Rainnolz as she staggers back. He keeps advancing with the sword ready. Rainnolz retreats, confused, asking why he's attacking. Rainnolz asks if she offended him and clocks that something's wrong with the knight. An arrow whistles through the cave. The arrow slams into the ground right by Rainnolz's foot. Scouts pop up on the cliff edges and signal. They've spotted the skeleton knight and the witch. Rainnolz clicks her tongue, realizing the scouts already alerted the main force. She glances back. Sir Knight stand there swaying, sword out. She notes he isn't thinking straight right now. A sharp blast rips through the tunnel. Rainnolz throws up her arms and steadies herself. She shouts to the skeleton knight, calling his name. He turns to her and pauses, her plea to come to your senses, cutting through the chaos. The succubus steps in behind him. He stops what he's doing and looks back. He tells her a raid is coming. Soldiers are already on their way into the dungeon. He grabs his sword and moves to shield her, saying he'll stop them and she should stay back. The succubus questions him. A red-haired woman materializes and confronts him about abandoning her. The skeleton freezes, recognizing her and stammering her name. He recognizes the red-haired woman, Rubia, and freezes. Rubia walks up. He loses balance, drops to a knee, sword scraping the floor. She stops over him and demands an answer about his promise to protect her. He's speechless, hands tightening on the hilt. Succubus stands beside him while Rubia confronts from the front. He blurts an excuse. Succubus cuts in, asking why he failed to protect them. She leans in at his ear and gives the hard truth. He's weak. The word lands like a hit. He's on the ground, sword slack. Rubia and the succubus face him from both sides. He stammers, unable to answer. The red-haired woman and the succubus gang up on him, both blaming him for failing to protect them. Their words pile on like knives. The skeleton knight mentally collapses. In his head, he's drowning in guilt, repeating that he was too weak. Cut outside the dungeon. A Templar scout reaches his mounted commander and calls out, reporting what he's found. A soldier rushes in and reports. The scouts have found the targets. The silver-haired commander takes the news in, steady and calm. He's about to move the unit. The skeleton drifts underwater, bubbles rising around him. He steadies himself in the depths and decides he has to get stronger. Cut back to the cave. A squad lines up their crossbows and gives the order to fire. Arrows rain down. Rena ducks behind a rock and takes cover. She checks the knight. He's still dazed and not responding. Rena grabs a rope, deciding to handle it herself. The squad rushes in, shouting to capture her and force them into a corner. She kicks a lit bomb into their path. It rolls to a stop right between their boots. The soldiers realize it's about to blow and scramble to back away. The blast goes off. She yanks the rope and drags the armored skeleton away from the explosion. The skeleton staggers, rattled by the shockwave, but stays upright. She shifts plans on the fly, draw the soldiers deeper, then pop a smoke bomb to slip out. An arrow slices past and grazes Rena's cheek. She flinches but stays on her feet. Knight steps forward from the shadows, calling out her tricks while closing the distance. He announces her arrest for the adventurer killings and promises a trial, while Rena clutches her bleeding arm and glares back. The skeleton knight steps between Rena and the soldiers, sword coming up as a shield. She freezes, unsure why he's defending her. The squad leader clocks the scene and decides the rumor was right. There's necromancy at play. He signals the marksman. Crossbows swing up and take aim at the skeleton first. The order is clear: drop the knight before going for the girl. Rena freezes as the soldiers take aim, and she realizes the danger closing in. The skeleton knight stands between her and the threat, sword lowered, body tense, mind slipping. Inside his head, it's like sinking deep underwater. Memories blur, identity frays, and he wonders if he's already dead while trying to hold on to his promise to protect her. He sinks through the blue, telling himself this must be the afterlife. Why else would he have met Rubia and the succubus again? He lets go a little, thinking it's enough that he got to see them one last time as his body drifts lower. Silence. He stares upward in the water, hovering on the edge of fading out. He drifts in the blue void, realizes the thought hitting him, did I die? He rejects it. If he died, he'd revive here. Calls it an illusion and forces himself to snap out of it. He steadies his will, sets a clear goal, grow stronger, and be ready to protect his mistress when their paths cross 20 years from now. Under the afterlife, he steals himself, a skeleton with a purpose, eyes burning with resolve to protect. Back in the cave, a warm drip hits his skull. Blood trails down his cheekbone. He jerks, awareness snapping back. Rena's over him, wounded and bleeding, still shielding his body. He realizes she took the hit meant for him, and that shock turns into raw determination. Rena smiles through blood, teasing him like he overslept. She throws herself into his arms, 3 arrows buried in her back. He catches her, stunned, realizing she took the hit meant for him. Rena smiles through the blood and cracks a joke, basically saying, save the thank you speech for later. First we survive. The knights bicker. The captain explodes at his men for shooting, reminding them the order was to capture the witch alive. One soldier gulps and points. Something's wrong. The captain turns, tense, ready for bad news. He hooks an arm around Rena's shoulders and steadies her. The arrows in her back shake, but she forces herself upright. Together, they face the squad. The captain steps out front, confident, signaling his men to close in. Steel and crossbows rise. They think it's over. Rena wipes the blood from her lip and smirks. Eyes narrow. Posture straightens. She's not surrendering. She's baiting them. The captain freezes, sweat beading. Something the girl said doesn't add up, and he finally senses danger. A spark flares at his boot. The fuse he never noticed is already lit and hissing on a small orb. His eyes shoot wide. Pure oh no realization. Too late to move before it blows. The knights freeze. A lit fuse snakes across the floor toward a mound of barrels marked with skulls. Realization hits. It's a trap. Rena, blood on her lip, gives a cocky smirk. She's the one who armed it, and she's not backing down. Violet blast erupts down the tunnel. The shockwave roars out, and the knights scramble, stumbling as the explosion swallows the passage behind them. The cave erupts in violet gas. Knights stumble, hacking and clawing at their eyes as the poison cloud rolls over them. Panel. Rena's barely standing, arm slung over the skeleton's shoulder. She forces a grin through the pain, basically asking him to haul her out while she buys them time. Their commander realizes too late what the purple haze is. He clamps a hand over his mouth and nose, eyes watering as the gas closes in. Purple gas fills the tunnel. Knights cough and stumble. The skeleton props up the bleeding girl and starts moving, using the mist as cover while the soldiers regroup. He lowers his stance and bursts forward with her over his shoulder. Two knights charge to cut him off, blades raised. Without breaking stride, he swings in a wide arc. The slash tears through the purple haze and sends the front line flying, carving a path ahead. He hoists Rina onto his back and bolts through the purple haze, arrows still jutting from her. Every step is a promise to keep her alive. He scolds her while sprinting, frustrated she didn't run. Underneath the anger is fear. He almost lost her. Rina, pale and bleeding, manages a tired smile. She reminds him they're allies. If he's fighting, she's staying right beside him. He's sprinting with Rina on his back, pushing through the poison haze as arrows clatter behind them. They burst out of the cave mouth in a daylight, purple smoke trailing like a bad omen. He stops, scans a tree line. No patrols in sight. For the first time since the ambush, he exhales, safe for the moment. Rina collapses outside the cave. The skeleton kneels and snaps the arrow shafts so they don't tear more flesh, planning to treat her properly once they're safe. A Templar steps from the trees, scoffing. He says the high-rank necromancer. Rumors were exaggerated, clearly underestimating the skeleton. The skeleton moves first, hips turn, blade whips out. A clean, explosive slash fired straight at the Templar's opening. A polished chest plate fills the frame. The crest and rivets catch the light. Someone important has arrived. The Blue Lion Templar captain steps forward, sword already leveled. Calm face, steady stance. He's here to take control of the fight, and he's aiming straight at our skeleton knight. Young man stands over the skeleton with his sword still in hand, while the other knight lies motionless in the dust. Butler reminds Rina that lord, and Rina responds, "Why? Yes, master." As soon as Rina answers, man keeps her pinned under an armored boot while a voice snaps. "You wasted my time to capture a weakling like her?" At the same time, skull-faced figure leans in and cuts off with, "Teach." That's. Butler quickly backtracks, saying he was sure Rina was a strong necromancer, and then he cuts himself off with a sudden, "Ah." And instead of finishing his excuse, a voice breaks into a desperate confession, saying that for this sin, they will pay with their life. Butler cuts the confession off with a strange shout, yelling, "Enough." He shuts that down immediately and demands, "Did I ever tell you to die by your own hands?" Butler drives the point deeper and asks whether any noble would care if an informant got killed for a false report, with a sword lying on the ground beside him. He gets his answer by turning away, saying he has somewhere else to be and is leaving now. Butler is left on the ground, panting beside the dropped sword. As he walks off, the bald-haired armored figure hands the next step over to Skeleton and says the woman can be punished at Skeleton's discretion after a trial. Moments later, Skeleton closes in with a sword drawn and stands over Skeleton, who can only brace on the ground beneath the pressure. Now Skeleton realizes the attack came from someone he never even saw clearly, and the strike was so fast he missed both the approach and the swing. He immediately reassesses his opponent and admits this one is different, on an entirely different level from everyone he has faced so far. Now Skeleton faces the bald-haired armored figure and asks the only thing that matters. Can he win? He gets that answer fast as Rina buckles in front of Skeleton, shaking out a pained groan while Skeleton stays fixed on Rina. He goes quiet for a beat, grips his sword, and cuts the thought off himself. No, that does not matter. He answers that hesitation by charging straight in as Skeleton lunges at Rina through the clash. At the same time, Rina moves, and a voice drives the moment forward with a blunt vow. No matter who stands in the way, the fight is on. Butler breaks first, shouting in outrage over what he calls Skeleton's insolence as Skeleton and the bald-haired armored humanoid stay locked across the weapon between them. He does not get an answer, because Butler suddenly cries out and turns as 4 armored figures appear inside the purple haze behind him. At least some of them are already staggering and groaning, and Butler is there among the group with a sword in hand. He immediately starts barking at the others, demanding to know what they are doing and ordering them to hurry up and help. A shot cuts through the chaos as an advanced skill triggers. The target is too low level to resist it, and the system locks their movement in place while someone blurts out, What's this?" Butler realizes what hit him and blurts out that it is a skill. The bald-haired, armored figure stands over him and answers with a single, measured reaction. Interesting. Now Butler collapses to the ground, shaking out broken breaths, and a voice remarks in surprise that even with the caster unconscious, her summon is still moving. The bald-haired butler turns at that, while another butler peeks out from behind in visible surprise. Instead, Rena lets out a groan from the ground with arrows still in her back, and Butler looks down at her and doubts the whole assumption, remarking that she does not look like any high-ranking necromancer at all. He raises his weapon and says that if their guess is right, killing her now would be beneficial. He gets cut off by a shout to move, while Butler drags himself forward on all fours and the masked figure fills the next instant. A voice keeps shouting, "Move," as a dark-sleeved hand swings a gray handle in and smashes bone-like shapes out of the way. He only says, "Then," and raises his sword as Skeleton drops in from above with a blade of its own. The silver-haired, armored figure meets the strike head-on. He drives the clash through, and Skeleton drops into a one-knee crouch with its sword pulled back, already set to spring again. He curses under his breath and admits the reports were not completely wrong after all. A blade suddenly buries itself in the ground right in front of Skeleton, cutting off the exchange. He jerks and looks up with a startled gasp. He raises his sword and declares that it's over, but a small bone-like piece strikes against the blade and stops that claim cold. Instead, Skeleton lunges in, only to take a hard hit straight through the torso that blasts fragments outward and stops the charge. Skeleton jolts, looks around, and blurts out, "Huh? This is..." Now the voice wanders through a cave, unable to place where it is, and immediately asks what happened to Rubia and the cemetery. He cuts himself off when he spots Rena lying there asleep, the snoring making it plain enough, and Skeleton blurts out, "Is this perhaps..." A blue status screen confirms the inheritance is complete and identifies Skeleton as a level 1 skeleton. Looking it over, Skeleton asks one thing. Where is it headed? Elsewhere, a purple light fills the cavern while Rena lies with her eyes closed beneath it. A ladder runs up the cave wall beside her. Now Skeleton realizes it really is alive again, but instead of pouring rain and thunder, all it gets is the sound of water dripping through the cave. Instead, a hooded figure grabs Skeleton by the skull and identifies it as the scatterbrained necromancer. A hooded humanoid wonders if seeing Rubia again is already impossible, and a blue notification cuts in with a sharp bing. The message gets worse. A memorial window states that after dying 5 times, the speaker maxed out likability with the necromancer in a previous life, and the bonus title upgrades to Necromancer's Lover. The only answer it gets is a stunned repeat of that new title. And the screen spells out what that title actually does. It boosts starting likability with necromancers tied to the speaker, with an extra bonus for one they have a working relationship with. After reading that, the only verdict is that it does not look useful in combat. As Skeleton looks over at Rena under the blanket, it starts questioning the title itself and wonders whether maxing that likability means the system recognized Rena as a necromancer. And that makes the Skeleton remember one more thing. A girl once said she would protect it as Rena moves off to the right. So Skeleton decides it has to repay her, but getting out comes first. Before anything else follows, a voice cuts in with a sharp call. Skeleton cuts in and orders the move immediately, telling Rena to leave behind anything that will slow them down and pack only what they need. Rena, still on the ground, questions it because it is still dark out. She gets her answer right away as Skeleton snaps, now, hauls Rena up, and runs with her through the rocky path. She immediately tries to push the pace even harder, fixating on one thing. That affinity effect is still rising, and she has to get out before it climbs any further. She pushes the urgency further, warning that if they do not move now, subjugation forces will arrive by morning, and Rena will be put in danger again. Rena stays right behind Skeleton as that decision hardens. As they keep moving, someone checks their destination and gets the answer. The next dungeon is the arid underground cemetery. Rena immediately cuts in and tells them to head for the ruins of Spider's Vault instead. A report stops Skeleton cold. From what they recently heard, the arid underground cemetery is completely barren. She immediately echoes the key point back in surprise. Instead, the cemetery turns out to be completely empty. A voice says the monsters are gone so thoroughly it is as if they were vaporized, and with nothing left there, they conclude there is probably nothing to gain by going in and suspect subjugation forces were there recently. Then Skeleton suddenly looks off-panel and blurts out, "Them." He turns at once, and as the exchange picks up, Rena starts with a cautious question while Skeleton answers with a simple yes. He keeps the exchange going by asking if anyone knows the Blue Knights whose armor bears a lion crest. Rena thinks it over, recognizes the crest, and asks if they mean the Blue Lion Templars. After a beat, she identifies them as one of the knightage that serve under the Empire. Skeleton immediately presses the point and asks how strong a knightage like that is. Rena admits she has never seen the Blue Lion Templars herself, but she starts answering anyway. She goes on to explain that the Blue Lion Templars are said to rank first or second among all knighthages, and their leader is counted among the Empire's top 4 swordsmen. And Skeleton immediately locks onto one more detail. The man they're talking about is said to carry a white blade called Seraphim. And now the name drops at last. The silhouette behind Skeleton is Marquis Vatienne. Someone recognizes him on the spot and blurts out, "It's him." Rena can barely process it. The man they just identified is one of the Empire's top 4 swordsmen, and she questions why someone like Marquis Vatienne is this far south as Skeleton keeps moving forward. As they keep moving, Rena points out that if Skeleton wants to head to the ruins of Spider's Vault, they will have to stop by the nearby town first. Skeleton turns back with a simple question, "What for?" Rena answers right away. They need to make preparations before going into a spider cavern, starting with antidotes for the venom and firebombs in case webs block the way. The hooded figure just faces her in silence. After a brief cough, Rena adds one more thing. She wants to bathe. The hooded figure gives her nothing back but silence. A moment later, someone admits they have only been thinking of herself, and Skeleton answers with a simple acknowledgement. She understands. Now Skeleton finally brings it back to the point and starts on the town Rena wanted to stop by. And when they reach the town, Rena lights up at once and blurts out that this is probably the biggest town in the whole region, which means the general store should be huge too. And now the place finally gets a name as a voice announces, "This is Syablum, with the castle waiting at the end of the forest path." Then Skeleton looks ahead and says, "Rubia," while Rena lifts an arm toward the sky. Skeleton moves on with Skeleton following behind, and Skeleton asks Rena if Skeleton should go alone if Rena is uncomfortable around humans. Rena only leans forward and clutches her strap. She answers right away, "No." When Rena blurts out in surprise, Skeleton shuts it down completely and says she will not let Rena go in alone. Rena immediately changes that answer and says she is going with Skeleton after all. As Skeleton stops, Rena calls out for Skeleton to wait a second. A moment later, Skeleton stops and turns. Instead, Skeleton questions the cape, and Rena tells Skeleton she did not give it out of need at all. She just wanted something nice to look at. That is when Gatekeeper cuts in and stops them at the entrance, demanding a toll before they can pass. Now a hooded figure eyes the coins in his hand and sizes them up as a pair, calling them tourists while Gatekeeper reaches in to take the toll. He barely gets that question out before Rena wraps herself around Skeleton's arm and answers that she came with her husband, adding that Skeleton is an oathless knight. Gatekeeper gives in with a click of his tongue and has the gate opened, letting them through. Rena keeps the joke going when someone questions the husband line, brushing it off and saying there is nothing to be embarrassed about. That is when both of them catch something off to the side. Rena turns at once, and Skeleton stops short with a startled reaction. Rena is the first to ask what is wrong, and the answer comes right away. There's opium in the streets, and the smell is strong. And that makes the next detail worse. Even this deep in town, with no opium den anywhere in sight, the smell is still overpowering. One of them immediately agrees. And the reason becomes obvious fast. Whoever is speaking notes that this place clearly does not welcome strangers. Now, even Metalsmith says it outright. The mood in town feels strange. So Rena lowers her voice and makes the call to stop searching and get lodging first, steering Skeleton toward the inn, and Skeleton agrees at once. So Rena immediately turns the cover story into action, clinging to the other figure's arm and insisting they act like a married couple. When the other one tells her to let go and stop fooling around, she doubles down and even tells them to call her honey, while a silhouetted person waits behind a wall nearby. A woman greets the newcomer and asks the only thing that matters right away. Do they need lodging or a meal? They answer at once. Both, and they want the meals sent to their room. At the same time, someone questions whether the woman behind the counter is the new owner, points out that she does not have a snake marking on her neck, and she turns with a brief, "Oh?" She leans on the counter and teases that Skeleton seems to want more than just food and a room. Rena answers with an angry growl, while Skeleton can only stare back in confusion. By morning, a voice cheerfully says it got a good night's sleep as birds chirp outside. Now Rena heads out saying a bath and a real bed washed all her fatigue away, and Skeleton follows with a simple reply that he is glad to hear it. Rena throws up a hand and calls the next move, the general store. Skeleton follows right behind, turning his head as they head out together. As they move, Rena glances back when Smith suddenly stops and looks off to the side. Rena asks what is wrong, but after a brief pause, Smith only says it is nothing and tells her to keep going. A voice suddenly cuts in and demands, "Excuse me? What do you mean?" Shopkeeper repeats that he already said it clearly. Fire bombs and antidotes are sold out. Rena can only blurt out that there is no way. So Rena immediately switches to a new order, asking for 10 medium-sized bottles and a cask of tar, and shopkeeper shuts that down too. Those are sold out as well. Smith steps in with his own complaint, demanding to know what the shop does have, and asking if they're treating them differently for not being locals. The answer is just as blunt. They happen to ask for the exact items that are already gone, and that cannot be changed. Smith gets nothing softer in return. The shopkeeper snaps at him to get out, says they are not welcome here, and flatly refuses to sell them anything at all. Rena snaps back in disbelief, but Smith cuts it off and tells Rena to forget it and leave. She does not let it go, and Rena presses Skeleton to act, demanding to know if a knight is really going to let bastards like him walk away. Now Rena keeps protesting as she helps Rena down the street, insisting the shopkeeper never meant to sell to them and only lied that the items were gone. At the same time, a hooded figure peeks out from cover while another observer stands nearby, watching them leave. Now, someone stops at the sight of Smith and starts to recognize him, trailing off with, "You're," while Rena stays beside him with her arms crossed. Skeleton cuts in and pins it down. This man was near the town entrance by the blacksmith, and now he wants to know why Smith was tailing them. A hooded figure cuts in with a simple order to follow, and when Skeleton turns toward them, someone answers with a startled, "What?" Skeleton questions that warning and asks if Smith means the alleyway, but Smith corrects Skeleton at once. The danger is the town itself. So Smith presses for answers, demanding to know why they were followed and why they were brought here, while Rena watches and another Smith quietly pours purple liquid into a bucket. Rena jerks at the question when an unseen voice asks if they're heading to the ruins of Spider's vault, and all she can get out is a shocked, "How did you?" Smith takes another pull from his mug. He points out the obvious problem. If they're really going into a spider cavern, they'll need fire bombs and antidotes. Instead, a voice shuts that down at once. They will not get those items here, and even if the shop had them, nobody would sell to them. Skeleton pushes back with one question. Why not? A voice answers bluntly. The Lord of Yubulum and the guards are raising spiders. At that, the cup jolts hard enough for the liquid to splash. Smith blurts out that the guards are raising spiders too, then admits he has no idea why they'd be doing it, while Rainnolz stays fixed on him and listens. Smith answers that the town is dying, and when someone questions that, he explains why. After the previous lord died in a suspicious accident, the new lord replaced the guards with men he calls no better than animals. From there, opium spread through the town until the people were hooked, and to keep buying more, they sold off their land and houses for almost nothing. The Lord took those properties gladly, and Smith adds that anyone who disobeyed the Lord, or even questioned him, was dragged off to the spider cavern. Pressed on why he is saying this, Smith makes it personal. His wife was taken too, and now he asks Smith to get revenge in his place. Smith pushes back at once, asking why he should take that revenge at all. Skeleton fires back that Smith came here for exactly that, and when Smith falters, Skeleton points straight at that armor. He answers for himself this time. Smith steps in and declares, "I made it." And the pink-haired armored figure points to the armor and explains that a young woman bought it for someone dear to her. And that is when Skeleton suddenly calls out, "Rubia!" The blonde-haired brown dress or tunic over white blouse with lace-up collar and gold square accents figure turns toward the voice but says nothing, while a hand nearby clenches into a fist. Skeleton closes the distance on Smith and grabs, or slams him in the chest, forcing him back. He accuses Smith of knowing that tourists who came to this town alone were being targeted, and demands to know why he did nothing. But the next words cut through the argument. One of them admits he is a coward and says he has lived that way his entire life. Smith stays leaned in toward the pink-haired figure as the confession lands. He finally breaks and throws out a different question, asking, "How old do I look to you?" Instead, the answer turns into a confession. An old man says he could never have saved her and calls that cowardice pitiful. As that lands, Skeleton and a blonde-haired armored figure close in on the pink-haired armored figure, while Smith sits with his face buried in his hands. He finally gives them something useful. Smith says the captain of the guards and his men should already be taking the criminals to the spider cavern, catching himself after calling them fodder, while Rainnolz watches from nearby. Rainnolz stays silent as the dark-haired man digs through the shelves and offers her something to burn both the spiders and the people he just sent to the cavern. Rainnolz jolts at the sight of it, and Smith immediately explains that the flame came from the sea and never goes out. The voice then gives the object a name, Grasmere's flame. A guard shouts an order, "Walk in a straight line," as shackled prisoners march forward, their heavy chains clanking with each step. Another guard screams at them to move faster, threatening them with their leader's arrival. Overlooking the path, Rainnolz watches alongside a blonde-haired companion. While Skeleton watches silently, Rainnolz leans forward from her perch in the trees and shouts, "Hey you better pick up the pace." Climbing the stone steps toward a massive cave entrance, Rainnolz and Smith arrive at the ruins of Spider's Vault. One of them remarks that it's on a much larger scale than the last dungeon they challenged. Rainnolz turns to Skeleton, asking whether she should carry a piece of their gear or if he plans to use it immediately. Skeleton offers no reply, standing perfectly still in his armor. Rainnolz, she notes that even in Grasmere, the town of blacksmiths, the flames are an incredibly rare find. The man confirms her observation, admitting that in his entire life, he's only succeeded in making one. He then offers to show them how to use it. Skeleton picks up the device himself, wondering aloud what it is. The man immediately panics, yelling for him to be careful. He explains that once the fire is lit, it will never go out. Skeleton immediately asks for confirmation it can never be extinguished. The man explains that if the bottle weren't enchanted with cold magic, the flame inside would burn for decades. He adds that it can be used in place of a blast furnace for refining iron, and that's not all. Holding out a pouch, Smith explains that if they spray its contents on themselves, they won't feel the heat from the flames. The man then reveals he was saving that flame to create his masterpiece. He's willing to give it up, but only if they use it to get rid of those evil bastards. Skeleton then hands over a sword, telling them to hold on to it for now. He warns that the weapon is dangerous and should only be used in a true emergency. With the sword now in hand, a command is given to head inside. Rina and Skeleton immediately start down the rocky steps. The steps lead them into a massive, dark cavern, its entrance and walls choked with thick, ancient spiderwebs. Inside, Spider Monster remarks that while it's her first time seeing the ruins of Spider's vault, it feels less like ruins and more like a loft. But an unsettling silence greets them. A voice cuts through the stillness, asking why it's so quiet when a lot of people entered right before them. The blonde-haired Skeleton realizes they've lost the trail. The path splits into too many directions, and the uneven floor has hidden any tracks. As they begin to ask where to go, they stop short, instead turning to Skeleton directly for an answer. Rina turns to her companion, saying she has something to ask. She wants to know about a girl named Rubia. Skeleton claims Rubia meant little to them, but their companion explains that Rubia was buying that very suit of armor for someone she held dear. At this, Skeleton turns sharply toward her. They try to justify it, claiming the armor was needed only for their mutual benefit. Rina seems to accept this at first, but she cuts the explanation short with a single word. However, the voice from the helmet finally admits the truth, speaking with heavy regret. I couldn't keep my promise to protect her. The moment passes as the blonde-haired Skeleton points out their path has come to a dead end. Addressed as Skeleton, Skeleton turns around and curtly asks what the matter is now. Without a word, Rina holds out a golden pendant. Skeleton looks down at the offering, asking what it is. Rina demands to know why she's giving the pendant to them, but Rina simply replies that she isn't. Instead, Rina clarifies that she only means to lend the pendant, explaining that the item is very precious to her. The person with her starts to argue that Rina should keep such a precious item, but stops mid-sentence. Something drips down onto Rina's helmet. A moment later, a hand comes into view, coated in a sticky substance, as a voice asks what it is. Skeleton looks up, and a deep growl rumbles from the darkness. A monstrous spider looms directly above, its many red eyes fixed on them. That's when a heavy foot slams onto the ground nearby. Rina's face pales in terror as she cries out, "They're here." Suddenly, Rina plummets through the air, screaming, as Skeleton shouts her name helplessly from the ground. Just then, a black, spiky projectile streaks through the air. Skeleton raises an arm, roaring in fury. "Why you?" But Rina is already moving, slamming her shadowy blade into the ground and shouting, "Get out of my way!" Skeleton doesn't even look at her, his attention fixed solely on the massive spider. He understands now he has to cut that spider thread. With that realization, Skeleton explodes forward, launching himself into a full-speed dash. But he's stopped dead, sent flying backward by a heavy blow that forces him to his knees. The massive spider has him in its grip, crushing his armor with overwhelming force. But as the monster screeches, Skeleton fights back, driving his dagger straight into its face. Just then, Rina plummets from the ledge, crying out, "Sire Knight," as she falls past the insects crawling on the cave walls below. A blade plunges deep in a spider's head, followed by a furious shout, "Damn insect!" But before the spider can even react, 3 bolts of red energy tear through the darkness, flying past Skeleton. Rina hangs upside down, trapped in a massive web by a single thread of silk. All around her, Spider Monster and other giant spiders begin to close in. Rina pants, struggling for every breath as she dangles helplessly from the silk. Sweat pours down her face as the single thought echoes in her mind. This is bad. A sword suddenly ignites with power. Skeleton holds the glowing blade high, ready for the attack. Skeleton is facing a swarm of giant spiders. One is already grievously wounded with green fluid pouring from its back, but the others just screech as they prepare to attack. Skeleton trembles, overwhelmed by their numbers. A single thought cuts through the panic. There are too many of them. But that thought doesn't stop the attack. Skeleton lunges forward, bringing the sword down in a violent clash against the monster's armored leg. The blade tears straight through Spider Queen, bisecting the monster in a spray of green fluid as a cry rings out. Damn insects. But before the spray can settle, another spider lunges, unleashing a powerful stream of webs in retaliation. Skeleton brings the sword down in a powerful cleave, a shout declaring, "This is nothing." But the blade is suddenly struck by an unseen force, knocking it clean out of Skeleton's hand. A cry of shock escapes as Skeleton reaches for the tumbling weapon. Before Skeleton can recover the weapon, thick webs erupt and bind them completely. The strands tighten, pulling violently at their limbs as they struggle against the trap. A curse escapes as Skeleton's hand trembles, unable to break the unyielding strands while Spider Monster hisses from above. A powerful, unseen blow suddenly slams into Skeleton's chest, cracking their armor. But even as they are thrown back by the force, a defiant thought rings out. I can't let it end like this. That defiant thought is cut short as a massive burst of flames suddenly erupts, engulfing the armored creature completely. Sorry for keeping you waiting, a voice shouts. It's a woman named Rainnolz, aiming a massive glowing cannon, as the person in the purple helmet turns in shock. Here are the smoked spiders you ordered, Rainnolz yells with a manic grin, unleashing a massive blast from her weapon as a voice immediately shouts her name. The fiery projectile slams into Spider Monster, engulfing it in a massive explosion. A piercing shriek echoes from within the flames as the creature is incinerated by the blast. With the immediate threat handled, Rainnolz turns to ask if Skeleton is all right. Still caught in the creature's webs, Skeleton confesses they barely made it out alive. Rainnolz is just as panicked, her voice trailing off as she explains that hanging upside down made all the blood rush to her head. But before she can reply, a voice screams a warning. Rainnolz, above you. Another spider monster descends from the darkness, targeting her next. With a furious scream of "Why you dash," Rainnolz immediately fires her cannon, unleashing a massive blast at the creature descending upon her. The fury of her scream is gone, replaced by a wide, manic grin as her weapon clicks. She scans the area, gleefully asking, "Now, what else should I burn next?" Her battle high evaporates as she inspects the weapon, whispering, "This is really something." Skeleton places a hand on her shoulder, and the pieces click into place. This was why they had to bring the flame in a bottle. Their attention snaps to two spider-like monsters scuttling away in the distance. A voice realizes that if the creatures are fleeing in that direction, then that must be the path deeper inside. The purple-haired man declares, "I'll pull it out now," as he forcefully wrenches his sword free. At that same moment, the entire corridor erupts in a torrent of fire, incinerating the pack of spider monsters. A sharp bing rings out through the cavern, confirming the kills. A system window immediately flashes in front of Skeleton, announcing that he's leveled up. He has a sudden realization combat provides a noticeably faster way to gain experience. Rainnolz turns to him, asking for his thoughts on her performance and playfully comparing herself to his wife. Skeleton answers plainly, she was the one who saved him. His armor clanks, breaking the moment. Now then, Skeleton begins, shall we get started? He cuts himself off with a cry of alarm, landing beside Rainnolz to find her unconscious on the ground. He lifts her into his arms. She pants for breath as an urgent voice cries out her name. That urgent voice belongs to a woman named Rainnolz, who points out the festering bite mark on Rainnolz's shoulder. She warns that an antidote is needed immediately, or it will be too late. But any plan to find an antidote is cut short by a furious roar, as a massive armored monster unleashes a piercing scream. Skeleton, Rainnolz, and another armored fighter immediately counter the beast, using their torches to drive the massive spider back. They shout commands, trying to force the creature to stay still as they press the attack. From a higher vantage point, Skeleton yells down at the red-haired man holding a torch, "Hey, you'd better do it properly." But the fight is interrupted by the appearance of Monster Queen, a figure clad in ornate purple and gold armor. A voice immediately asks if she's the Monster Queen, the true boss of the dungeon. Meanwhile, Rena struggles against the poison, thinking her attackers must have an antidote. But her thoughts are cut short as she realizes something is even more important. That realization dawns on another as a voice questions why humans would be raising monsters in the first place. Another soldier simply calls out for their captain. A voice tells Spider Queen not to be disappointed. The speaker, a person with a snake tattoo on their neck, reminds her that she's fed regularly. All she needs to do is behave. He follows the command with a threat, promising to burn her eggs to a crisp.
They scream at the larvae to move faster, while exhausted workers struggle under heavy loads, groaning in pain. And from the shadows a skeleton watches silently, quickly realizing the one controlling everything is the captain of the... As a terrified man breaks down and reveals the truth that they were only following orders, that the captain has been handing over girls to the Necron society as slaves. And as this dark reality sinks in, a woman smiles faintly like she already knows everything. Evil man grins without fear. And in the middle of it all, a giant spider attacks a helpless victim while someone calmly continues questioning him, completely unfazed by the chaos. The guards drag prisoners through the cave while one of them questions why they didn't just execute them in town, but another immediately shuts him up, reminding him they only follow the captain's orders. And before the conversation can go further, a sudden scream echoes as the snake-tattooed man turns his head, sensing something is wrong, only for a masked figure to appear out of nowhere and instantly grab a guard from behind, pressing a sword to his neck as the terrified man begs for his captain to save him. Evil man realizes the situation is out of control, and the skeleton calmly takes control, demanding the antidote, and giving them no room to argue while the others hesitate, unsure if obeying him will even save the hostage. The masked figure coldly says he'll kill him without pain and spare his men, but the captain just bursts out laughing, completely mocking him and treating him like a joke. Asking if he even knows who he is, then reveals the real reason. Months ago a girl came to buy armor and was killed, and the armor he's wearing now belonged to her, making it clear this is personal. But instead of fear, the captain smirks, brushing it off like it's nothing and joking about revenge. Then mocks him even more, saying that girl wasn't the only one and there have been many like her, showing he doesn't even remember or care about the lives he destroyed. He asks for the antidote from the evil man, then kills the hostage to show he's serious. The evil man suddenly counterattacks and cracks his armor, but realizes something is wrong. Then mocks him without understanding the situation. But the skeleton reveals the truth that the Spider Queen and her spider soldiers are already there, and the attack wasn't from him, it was from them. As the spiders start attacking everyone, including the evil man, while Rena, his teammate, is also part of the plan, and the whole situation turns into chaos with the skeleton still in control. A spider stabs through his body and lifts him up. Then the evil man smirks and says the smell on him proves he took the Spider Queen's egg, calling him an intruder as the skeleton drops his sword and gets completely caught. Then the Spider Queen appears and takes him, showing control, and starts attacking the others, cutting them down fast, while the evil man laughs and says the Spider Queen got her meal, thinking it's over. But suddenly a huge explosion hits from behind and he turns serious, realizing something just changed. The Spider Queen burns and screams in rage. As fire spreads everywhere, the evil man looks shocked, trying to understand what's happening. Then suddenly he sees through a hole and realizes something is wrong. As the skeleton appears alive, removes his helmet, revealing his true form, and shows a weapon, making it clear he's not human. Then he says he warned him and raises the weapon, declaring he'll make his death agonizing. He runs through the fire trying to escape. The Spider Queen screams in pain as the flames burn her body. Then suddenly spiders start dropping from above, surrounding the skeleton. The evil man's men burn alive, screaming for help. He falls to his knees as the fire spreads on his body. He panics and looks around in fear. Then he sees the skeleton standing unharmed inside the flames. The skeleton points the weapon at him. The man begs for his life, saying he will do anything. He says it's over. The man screams no. The skeleton fires and burns him alive. He screams as his body melts in the flames. The skeleton says he will burn every one of them who touched Rubia. He keeps firing, saying not a single one will survive. Then suddenly his skull starts melting. He looks confused as his own head drips apart. His body collapses to the ground. Everything goes silent as burnt corpses lie everywhere. He suddenly wakes up after dying again, confused but alive. A system confirms something inside him has changed, and he realizes he couldn't feel the fire anymore. Understanding this isn't normal, he quickly regains focus. He notices the girl is alive too, which makes the situation even stranger. Without wasting time, he decides to move out immediately toward Ublam. Meanwhile, Rina reaches the town to buy supplies. But everything is already sold out at the same time. The skeleton in purple armor realizes the situation is moving faster than expected, something big is coming, and they're already too late to prepare. The knight refuses to back down and drags the man out, ignoring the tension around him. A hooded man suddenly attacks, trying to silence him, but the knight overpowers him instantly. Realizing this isn't random, he identifies the man as the town's blacksmith. He senses the fear and pressure behind his actions and forces him to cooperate, seeing no way out. The blacksmith gives in and leads them somewhere safer. Inside the forge, the truth starts coming out. People who question the Lord didn't just disappear, they were dragged away into the spider cavern and whatever waits there. No one comes back from it. The blacksmith, shaken but desperate, reveals a hidden weapon meant to wipe everything out. It's a rare flame, powerful enough to burn endlessly. Once ignited, Rina instantly realizes how dangerous it is. While the knight calmly takes control of the situation, the blacksmith, now convinced, hands over both the flame and the tool needed to use it. He also gives them a special solution to protect themselves from the fire's effects. He sprays the protection liquid directly onto him, while holding him by the collar, forcing him to experience it up close. The man struggles and panics, trying to back away, but the knight keeps him in place like a test subject. While gripping him tightly, the knight calmly explains how the flame works and how dangerous it really is. Even with protection, overexposure means death, slow, unavoidable, absolute. What they're about to face isn't normal fire. It's something that erases you before you even realize you're burning. Skeleton keeps the man lifted by the collar, staring straight into his eyes, forcing the truth out. Even while choking, the man laughs as if he has realized something. The fear in his eyes shifts. Not fear of death, but fear of what Skeleton really is. The man calls it out, saying Skeleton isn't human, and for a brief moment everything goes still. Before he can continue, Skeleton slams him down, silencing him. Then he admits it calmly. After decades as a blacksmith, he can tell there is something else moving inside that armor. And the room falls silent because the man is no longer begging. He's confronting the truth about Skeleton. Skeleton ignores the old man's twisted calm, while Rina gets angry beside him. Rina urges Skeleton to finish it, but Skeleton turns away, losing interest in killing someone already half dead. Skeleton shifts focus, scanning the room, then notices a sword stuck nearby. Skeleton walks up, pulls the blade out and checks its weight and durability. The blacksmith panics, realizing what Skeleton is about to do, reaching out to stop him. Skeleton doesn't hesitate, raises the sword and presses it straight to the man's neck, and just like that, Skeleton decides this is the price the man pays for trying to kill them. Skeleton keeps the sword at the man's neck and finishes him. The place falls silent as everything settles. Skeleton walks forward with the sword on his shoulder. Rina follows behind, holding the weapon tightly. They reach the cave entrance and stop. Skeleton looks ahead at the cave. Rina smiles and adjusts her grip on the weapon. She starts walking inside. Skeleton pauses for a moment, then follows her into the cave. Skeleton moves behind Rina and quietly says, "Forgive me." Rina turns slightly confused. Skeleton taps his neck, then strikes her from behind. Rina's eyes widen and she collapses unconscious. Skeleton catches her from ground. Skeleton places her gently against the wall. Rina stays asleep, breathing calmly. Skeleton looks at her and tells her to rest. Next moment, Skeleton turns and starts running deeper into the cave. He grips his sword and says he'll be back soon. Skeleton enters deeper cave, fire and sparks spreading around, spiders burning in flames. Skeleton uses flame gun, aims at spiders, keeps distance and controls fire. Skeleton adjusts weapon, prepares to wipe all spiders at once. Skeleton hears voices, turns head toward sound. 3 men with swords walk forward inside cave. Looking alert, leader notices something wrong, reacts to missing spiders. Skeleton stands facing them, holding weapon ready. One soldier whispers to captain. They decide to talk. Group spreads slightly, surround area. Talk to Skeleton, saying he looks lost. They warn him about dangerous cave paths while watching him carefully. Captain talks calmly, says they are town guards and offers to escort Skeleton out. Captain pulls out a bottle, casually asks about eggs while holding it. Skeleton turns slightly and replies short, rejects the question. Skeleton grips sword tighter, prepares to attack. Skeleton suddenly swings, slash hits Captain before he reacts. Bottle breaks midair, liquid spills, Captain gets hit and staggers. Other guards step forward in shock, realizing attack happened instantly. Captain holds chest, confused how Skeleton noticed and reacted so fast. Group surrounds Skeleton again, now hostile, questioning his identity. Skeleton stands facing the captain, says he made a promise. Skeleton states it clearly, he promised the captain would die painfully. Captain and guards react, confused and annoyed, don't take it seriously. Captain gets angry, orders everyone to attack, guards rush in from all sides. Skeleton doesn't move, just pulls out the flame weapon and aims forward. Knight uses the flamethrower. Right arrow fire spreads everywhere. Right arrow, multiple guards get burned at once. Burning guards run and scream. Right arrow captain steps back holding his chest. Shocked Knight thinks he can't use the weapon too long or he'll overheat like before. Knight keeps distance and keeps spraying fire. Right arrow, more guards burning and falling. Captain recovers and rushes forward with sword, tries to attack from front. Knight reacts fast. Right arrow turns and blocks, interrupts attack with his weapon mid-swing. Captain laughs, says the Knight's weapon is already useless. Scrap. Right arrow fire device seen broken on ground. Spider legs appear from ground. Right arrow captain says burning eggs made the queen angry. Captain picks up one intact egg, realizes one is still safe. Spider Queen appears behind captain. He holds the egg and threatens her to obey. Queen immediately charges forward at the Knight after command. Knight switches to sword, gets ready for incoming attack. Impact hits the ground hard. Right arrow explosion shockwave as the queen lands. Skeleton drops to one knee, barely holding himself together, realizes that queen hit is insanely strong. Fire still burning nearby. Knight, thinking he only survived because of that, starts stressing about what to do next. Queen attacks again fast. Knight gets thrown back midair while trying to guard. Captain just standing there laughing, mocking him, saying a sword alone won't save him. Skeleton suddenly pushes off the ground, quick movement setup. Captain notices something's off, turns confused like, huh. Spider Queen goes full rage mode, screaming, locking straight onto the skeleton. Skeleton quickly looks back, sees the last egg still burning, realizes it's about to be destroyed. Egg cracks in the fire, melting. That was the last one. Spider Queen instantly lunges, crazy speed, straight kill intent. Skeleton, damn screw it, I'll gamble, reaches out to act. Boom. Huge impact, something hits hard. Skeleton's helmet shatters mid-blast. Captain still grinning like a psycho, holding the egg, talking trash, basically telling him to just die and feed the spider. The Spider Queen fixes her gaze on him, her killing intent pressing down as the skeleton feels the weight of it. A sudden strike lands on her face, snapping her head back as she gets caught off guard for a moment. She erupts in rage, flames still burning her body, yet she charges forward like the pain means nothing. The captain pauses, confusion creeping in as he realizes this fight isn't going how he expected. The skeleton rises again, his helmet gone, his skull exposed, flames wrapping around his sword. A red glow fills his empty eyes as he tightens his grip, completely ready to end the fight.
Our hero attacks the Spider Queen, launching a series of attacks, defeating her with one last powerful attack. The evil soul can't believe Skeletor defeated him, then realizes that she's not human either, but he thinks he'll kill her before Skeleton can do anything. As soon as he attacks her, Skeleton cuts off her hand and she starts crying. If you had died earlier, you wouldn't have had such a bad death. Hearing this, he starts shouting in fear to his fellow soldiers to attack him. Skeleton says they've all burned to death earlier. Then he calls for the spiders, but the spiders are also burned to death. He tries to run while crawling on the ground, but his clothes catch fire, and while trying to extinguish the fire, he slips on his leg and falls into the ditch. Skeletons look there and see that he is still burning, and in the process, the bad man dies. Skeleton says it's all over now and tries to keep his burning sword with him. But it was a bit dangerous, so he leaves it there. He then decides to leave the cave. Just then, the Spider Queen arrives. Skeleton is shocked and thinks that he still has the strength to fight. And he has already thrown her sword. What will he do now? Then the Spider Queen points her claw towards him. He thought that she will attack him, but she was just taking her egg. Queen hugs her egg, and after some time, suddenly falls down. Queen hugs her egg, and after some time, suddenly falls down. Then suddenly a system window appears in which his stats increase as a reward, and the mission is successfully completed, etc. After all this, the skeleton comes out from there. As soon as he appears, Rena angrily says to him, "Do you know how I feel after being betrayed? Do you not even understand me enough?" As she says this, her attention goes to the bag. She asks, "What is in that bag?" As soon as Rena opens it, the bag is filled with gold coins. She becomes alert so that no one sees this treasure, and in a low voice she threatens the skeleton. "If you betray me like this again, no one worse than me will exist for you." The skeleton is not affected by any of this and asks Rena, "Where will we go after this?" She says, "Come, follow me. I will take you to my guild's branch office." Hearing the words guild office, he becomes shocked. They arrive at a place where many children are playing. The skeleton realizes that this is the guild's branch office, but it does not look the way it should. A small girl hugs Rena, and all the children become happy after seeing Hera's voice comes. It has been a long time since I saw you, Miss Rena. This boy is the head of this orphanage. He takes both of them inside the guild and serves them. The head asks about the knight. Rena introduces him. This knight saved me from dying and has helped me a lot. Boy introduces himself. My name is Lime, and I am the headmaster of the orphanage. But the skeleton gives no reaction, so he feels that maybe he has trouble talking to people. He says, "You can remove your armor here. There is no need to wear it here." But he refuses and says he has no problem in the armor. However, Lime knows who is under the armor. Hearing this, the skeleton says in shock, "How do you know what I am?" Then they hear the screams of children, and they see some people trying to forcefully take the children away with them. Lime says, "What problem do you people have?" An unknown man says, "Who are you?" Lime introduces himself. "I am the headmaster." The bad man says, "We run another orphanage near the village, and this girl ran away from there and came here. We were going to give this girl for adoption, but she ran away from us." The headmaster understands everything and tells him, "If you treat her so badly, then of course she will run away." Hearing this, the bad man gets angry, but his female companion stops him and says, "Look, headmaster, I do not care how you raise these children. We only came here to take this girl. It will be better for you if you act like you never saw us and let us take her." But the headmaster is not affected at all. He says, "This girl is a member of our orphanage, so I cannot do that." The woman says, "Then make an agreement with us, and we will give you a lot of money. Anyway, I do not think you earn any money from this orphanage." But the headmaster directly refuses. As you can see, I do not use the children of this orphanage like tools to make them do evil work. The woman says, "I was trying to solve this matter peacefully, but you are replying like a smart man. Fine then, now I will kill you." The skeleton says, "Should we help somehow?" But Rena refuses because help will not be needed by us, but by those bastards. As soon as the two attack, the headmaster kills both of them. He says, "A human heart is pure, and they are innocent. Whatever you teach them, they become like that. If they had stayed with you, they would have become like you." After saying this, he kills the woman as well. His attack is like acid, which completely erases the bodies of those evil people. The skeleton is shocked after seeing this, but Rena already knew who would win. The headmaster says, "So, let me tell you about myself. My real name is Slime, and I'm the manager of the TNT Eastern Guild branch office." The skeleton asks, "So you are the branch manager, but what else are you besides that?" The headmaster replies, "In a way, I am a shapeshifter. To be clear, I am a slime. I am also an ally of non-humans and live among these humans." The skeleton knows that intelligent slimes are very rare, and their numbers are so small that they can be counted on fingers. And one of them is standing right in front of him. He then says, "I heard that the people you killed were backed by some high-ranking officials. How will you escape from them now?" But the slime is not bothered by such things. He says, "I joined Human Guild so that I could wipe out such evil people." After that, they all return inside. The skeleton asks again, "Why is a slime like you running a human orphanage?" The slime replies, "We slimes have no gender, nor do we have relationships like children or parents the way humans do. Other creatures remain the same like humans, but humans grow up and become different. I like humans because I learn many interesting things from them." He continues, "Humans think we slimes can take any form, but we can only create the outer shape of that form because we are shapeless. You can think of us like water without a fixed shape. If you want, I can change my form." He tells the skeleton that if he wants, he can remove his armor and speak comfortably, but the skeleton refuses and asks, "How do you know that I am a skeleton?" Rena replies, "Master uses and appraise." The skeleton asks, "What is that?" The slime explains, "You can think of it as an ability that uses the characteristics of slimes." He then says, "I heard that you saved Rena. In return, I can help you with something." The skeleton thinks for a moment and gives him the item he got from the Spider Queen, so he can learn about it. The slime starts examining it with his ability. During this time, The skeleton looks at Reyna and understands why she does not trust him, because she grew up in an orphanage while living with a monster. After a while, the examination ends. The slime says, "This is just a valuable gem." As soon as he says that, the system screen opens and reveals that it is a web-slinger ruby, which can be used to change his class and level up abilities, increasing damage against insect monsters. At that moment, the skill activates. The slime asks, "Are you all right?" The skeleton says, "Yes, I am fine. It seems I got an amazing skill." The slime asks again, "Do you need any more help?" The skeleton asks, "Do you have a sword?" The slime says, "For that, I will have to go to the village blacksmith. And your armor also needs repair." The skeleton accepts his words. After some time, night falls. The skeleton cannot understand what class change means in the system. He is thinking about it when Reyna comes there and asks, "Are you looking at the stars?" Skeleton replies, "No, I was thinking about something. Aren't you spending time with your new sisters? Aren't you sleeping with them?" Reyna feels that if she spends too much time with them, they will become dependent on her. She does not want them to always rely on her. She says, "Maybe someday we can live together." Hearing this, the skeleton becomes surprised. Reyna gives him her pendant, which she had since childhood. She does not even properly remember who gave it to her. The skeleton asks, "Then why are you giving this to me?" She says, "This is for the day when you become the branch manager and complete your quest." But after a moment, she speaks her true feelings. Do you want to stay with me?" Hearing this, the skeleton becomes completely stunned. Skeleton stands at the edge of a forested estate, then pauses, one hand drifting to its chest, murmuring quietly to itself, as though something has shifted inside the armor. The attendant reports that the repairs finished in a single day, then presents the sword skeleton had requested, his voice careful, uncertain whether the result would satisfy. Skeleton lifts the repaired sword overhead, and the verdict comes through clearly, "Not bad at all." Skeleton apologizes for the imposition, and Reyna waves it off from the doorway, until something catches her eye, and she stops short, startled. Reyna snaps around to face Skeleton directly, and beside her, Slime stares over in open confusion. Skeleton stands silent, offering nothing. Slime breaks the quiet with a polite but direct question, asking Skeleton where the next destination is. Skeleton grips the sword and admits, with some uncertainty, that another dungeon seems likely, but no decision has been made. Slime steps in with a smile and makes an offer, asking Skeleton to join the guild. Skeleton's response is a single stunned word, "What?" Slime lays out the real pitch. Reyna's trainee rank limits the information she can access, but if Skeleton joins the guild under his recommendation, full member benefits kick in immediately. Slime backs the pitch with a grin, telling Skeleton he'd make a great member, and not just out of admiration, but because he knows how to spot real talent. Skeleton says nothing. After a long pause, Slime turns down the offer outright. "No, I'll have to decline." Skeleton gives the real reason. Being tied to a group isn't something they do. Slime takes the refusal in stride, calmly sipping from his mug, but a voice cuts through. "Is that so? That's disappointing." And nearby, a fist tightens. Skeleton makes the alternative clear. Reyna is enough. Any information needed going forward, Skeleton will get from her directly. Reyna freezes at the mention of her name, her face flushing as she presses a hand to her forehead in stunned silence. Slime shifts the conversation, asking what Reyna would need to do to actually become a full guild member. The answer comes back simply: complete guild requests or donate gold, and Skeleton's quiet echo of "donate" suggests that second option just became the more interesting one. Reyna digs through her pouch and dumps her spider hunt gold onto the table, asking Slime if the amount will cover it. Slime glances down at the gold and confirms it. The amount is enough. A system notification flashes in front of Skeleton. Reyna is now an official guild member. Her information access has expanded, and the T&T Guild can be contacted through her directly. Skeleton's assimilation rate dips slightly to 56%. Slime unrolls a long scroll and begins reading the guild bylaws aloud. A formality, he says, but one they need to get through. Reyna reacts with surprise while Skeleton stands opposite them. A glowing blue display lit across the chest, quietly registering what appears to be a scenario update. Skeleton studies the blue display, wondering whether meeting all the requirements will trigger something once Rina becomes an official member. As Skeleton weighs how to proceed, Slime continues reading aloud a clause warning about any information that threatens the peace of Amber. The masked figure issues a sharp command. Whatever information needs reporting must go out immediately, through every available channel. The listener's short, confused reply suggests the urgency hasn't fully landed. Skeleton catches the word and cuts in. Wait, did you say Amber? Slime, holding a cloth up against Rina, answers plainly that he did, asking if something's wrong. Amber is a city that wears two faces, a busy maritime port lined with steamships and cranes, and an industrial powerhouse of gears and engineered towers rising behind the harbor. Skeleton already knows what this city is about to become. 20 years before linking up with Mistress Succubus, Amber will be swallowed by war between the Empire and the Freedom Alliance, triggered by Crown Prince Alton Clements II. This is the war Skeleton foresaw. Skeleton charges forward on horseback with sword raised, soldiers advancing in formation around the flanks, while Rina closes in with blade drawn on the opposite side. Caught in that memory, a voice lays out the brutal geometry of it. Amber sits directly between the two powers, which makes it the Empire's first target when war breaks out. Skeleton asks why this clause appears in the promotion procedure at all, and Slime pauses before explaining. It's classified information, but Skeleton won't have trouble with it. It marks the location of the guild's headquarters. Slime looks up from the paper, a flicker of hesitation crossing his face. Should I tell him? Before deciding to push forward and ask Skeleton one thing directly. Skeleton leans into the question directly. If the Empire moves on the Freedom Alliance, Amber is the obvious first target, the biggest obstacle in the path of conquest. Wouldn't that qualify as a grave threat? Skeleton asks, as mentioned in the bylaws. Slime leans back with his hand on his chin and concedes the point. Skeleton's read on the Empire's intentions is exactly right. A voice confirms that Amber is the Empire's biggest obstacle, geographically and politically, but adds that they've already anticipated this and prepared a proper response. Slime cuts in sharply, repeating the phrase back as a question, then raises his hand and shuts the conversation down. That's the end of this, he says, holding up the document. I can only reveal this much. Slime extends his hand and formally congratulates Rina on her promotion, declaring her an official member. She shakes it and thanks him, the paperwork behind them already settled. Skeleton doesn't wait. The handshake barely settles before asking what it takes for Rina to make branch manager. Slime laughs and points out that Rina just became a full member, with Rina watching from behind as the two talk over her future. Skeleton gives Slime a straight answer. It plans to prioritize Rina's promotion, but only because the path looks useful for its own goals too. Slime tells Skeleton directly, some difficult requests have come in that Rina can't handle alone, but with Skeleton's help, the next promotion shouldn't take long. Slime smiles and turns the question back on Skeleton. Now then, will you accept? A glowing quest prompt materializes in front of Skeleton. Will you accept? With accept and decline hanging as the only two options. Ramon's voice rings out across the hall as he declares himself this year's host of the Eras tournament, pumping his fist and reading from his paper that every knight, soldier, and fighter from across the Empire has gathered here, all for honor, glory, and the one event everyone came to see. Ramon leans into the crowd, fists clenched, voice rising as he hypes the arena that decides the strongest fighter in the land. The one event on everyone's lips. He thrusts a hand into the air and cuts himself off mid-sentence, drawing out the suspense before delivering the announcement. Ramon throws both arms wide and bellows the name of the tournament, and the crowd erupts, fists raised, the roar swallowing everything as Rina and the spectators around her surge forward with the rest of the stands. Amid the celebration, one figure stands out. A blue-haired traveler in a dark cloak and round glasses turns and scans the crowd, reserved where everyone around them is roaring, as nearby spectators lean in with grins, their attention drawn unmistakably toward that still, watchful face. The tournament is no longer just words. Announcer's voice cuts through the arena, calling out the first contestant. a giant from the Brass Ring Free Company, known for crushing his enemies with a hammer that now dominates the frame, its sheer size making clear this fighter is no ordinary entrant. The announcer's voice rings out with the fighter's title, the Dismantler, Jacket Isaac. The giant stands in the arena, hammer resting across his shoulder, grinning like a man who already knows how this ends. The crowd erupts. Spectators shout for Jacket to destroy every opponent, and one mustached man roars that he's betting everything on the fighter. Separately, announcer reads from a sheet and notes that Jacket's first opponent will be a complete newcomer to the tournament. That newcomer wastes no time. Skeleton fills the archway in silhouette and shouts a vow across the arena. I will bring honor to my household in Genii. Sarai, Juggin. A voice calls out as Skeleton steps fully into the arena, one hand already gripping the sword at her waist. She draws the blade steady and slow, cape shifting behind her. Jacket's newcomer opponent, ready to fight. Sword raised, Skeleton calls out for the contestants to get ready. And across the arena, the horned fighter drops into a ready stance, weapon gripped tight, waiting for the signal to charge. Begin. And the horned fighter explodes forward, closing the distance across the stone courtyard as Skeleton holds position, sword leveled and ready to meet the charge. The horned fighter brings his weapon crashing down in a brutal overhead swing. Skeleton holds steady, sword braced forward to meet the blow head-on. The hammer connects with a thunderous impact, driving Skeleton back as dust explodes across the arena floor. The letter is from a household in Genii. They want to hire a mercenary to enter the tournament under their crest. Skeleton reads it and pushes back hard, demanding to know what kind of household head lets a stranger carry his crest when he has knights of his own. Slime explains the answer plainly. The household never trained a knight because they built their fortune through leather trade, not warfare. They want to hire a mercenary specifically to sidestep the pressure from the tournament's event sponsor. Skeleton asks who exactly the sponsor is, and Slime reads from the document. The Lord of Arast, of the Ray family, and the younger brother of the deceased lord. That last detail stops Skeleton cold. The terms come next, 2 Siren for every win, but no extra pay past the 8th round. Skeleton approves. A household that caps the payout isn't looking for glory, just a quiet solution, which suits a hired mercenary just fine. The deal is done, and the person who drafted it leans forward with a smile, asking plainly whether Skeleton will accept. Skeleton gives her answer, and somewhere across the city, a horse-drawn cart rolls forward, its passenger bracing against the jolt as the wheels begin to turn. On the wagon rolling through the forest, Rena and Skeleton trade a quiet exchange. The Ray family in Arast comes up, and Skeleton notes it plainly. That's Rubia's hometown. Skeleton pieces it together. Rubia's uncle, the one who just took the title of Lord, is probably the same man who killed his own brother and tried to have his niece murdered. Rena quietly wonders aloud whether she should kill him, the man behind all of it. Slime turns on the cart and asks about the person who bought the armor, who exactly paid for it. Rena rests her chin on her hand and asks quietly, "What was she to you?" Rena shuts the question down fast. There was nothing between them, she says, but Skeleton admits that describing who that person even was is beyond easy answers. Rena calls the subject an attractive person, then turns the question back, asking whether Skeleton would have answered any differently if she had been. Skeleton's answer catches Rena off guard for just a moment. Then Rena says no, she would have answered the same way regardless. Skeleton speaks up, voice steady. There's something that must be done. Rena pauses, then answers quietly. She understands. The driver turns back and calls out that they've arrived. This is Arast. Rena looks up from behind the cargo, and Skeleton sits quiet beside her as the town comes into view. The crowd is already flowing into the tournament gathering. Vendors, families, and children in tow, the whole town alive with it. Skeleton moves through the bustle. Hood up, just another face in a sea that has no idea what brought him here. Skeleton falls into the flow of the crowd, moving with them through the arched gate as red banners hang overhead. Just another body passing into the fortress that holds everything she came here to settle. Inside the fortress grounds, the path opens into a tree-lined walkway packed with attendees, and Rena takes it all in, remarking that a popular event really does draw the crowds. Nearby, the The registrar calls out for anyone holding a Ray family invitation letter, and Rena steps up to the booth, declaring she'll register, leaving the registrar visibly caught off guard. Registrar barely has time to react before Skeleton steps forward and declares, with absolute certainty, that it is he who will be competing, while Rena watches quietly from behind. The registrar asks where they're from, and Rena answers plainly, Genii, then slides the letter of invitation across. The registrar flips through his ledger, scanning the pages until his finger lands on the entry. Genii found. The letter confirmed legitimate. Slime asks for a name to complete the registration, and Skeleton freezes, the question catching them completely off guard, with no answer ready. Skeleton asks outright whether giving a name is really necessary. The registrar hesitates, pen hovering over the ledger, but confirms it is required. Skeleton turns away, murmuring to themselves, "My name, huh?" Rena stammers, caught off guard, while the old man fixes her with a long, silent stare, waiting. Rena breaks the silence by leaning on the counter and laughing it off, telling the registrar that Skeleton is just a little shy. The registrar answers with a flat, giving nothing away. Rena steps forward and gives the registrar a name, Sarai Juggin. Skeleton steps forward, and both Rena and registrar go wide-eyed at the sight, the name on the registration sheet now standing in full armor before them. The tournament is about to begin. All contestants are being called inside. Rena asks the armored guy, "What's your name?" He casually replies, "I just made it up." Rena gets confused. He doesn't look serious at all. He explains that his name is inspired by powerful demon lords. He borrowed parts from 2 monsters to create it. He starts telling the world background. After a huge war, the human world became weak. Now, 16 monster lords are going to descend. Then he talks about himself. Truth is, he was never strong. He was just a skeleton at the very bottom of the monster army, controlled by a necromancer like a puppet. That life was a complete nightmare. Everything changed when he met Mistress Succubus. She saved him, or gave his life meaning. He says, "If I hadn't met her, I don't know what I'd be doing now." Back to the present. Rena asks again, "Then what's your real name?" He avoids the question and says, "You really don't waste time." Rena feels a little awkward and says, "I didn't expect another walking skeleton like you, so I didn't think your name mattered." MC replies, "Even I don't know what my real name is." Rena smiles and gets excited. "Then can I give you a name?" MC just says, "It's fine." Rena starts joking and throwing random names like Captain Skull, Dark Skull, Iron Skull. MC gets slightly annoyed. Then suddenly, someone announces, "Welcome, everyone." The staff explains the rules. The tournament will start tomorrow. They will stay in the castle, get rooms, and can move freely inside. If they need anything, they can ask. MC thinks about something important. This is where Rubia used to live. He calls a staff member and asks directly, "Where's the library?" The staff gets confused. "Why do you need the library?" MC replies, "There's something I'm looking for." In the library, the worker laughs a bit. It's rare for a fighter to come here. She notices he's different from others. He's not just about fighting, he wants knowledge too. She asks, "Are you looking for a book?" MC asks for a specific author. "Do you have anything written by Kevin Ashton?" She says she doesn't know that name, but will check out. MC thanks her and waits. He looks around. The library is dusty and messy. No one maintains it. Suddenly, a book falls near him. MC notices something. MC looks up. He notices a girl quietly reading on a ladder in the library. He stays silent and watches her for a moment. The librarian comes back and says, "I found it. We had one of his novels." She hands him the book. MC takes it and says, "Thanks." MC looks THS name of book Crevice of Time, Kevin Ashton. This is exactly what he was searching for. Suddenly, another old book falls on the floor. The librarian picks it up and sighs. No one reads this anymore. It's just collecting dust. MC notices something and asks, "That person?" The librarian gets nervous and quickly changes the topic. "It's nothing. I said something weird." She reminds him, "Please return the book before you leave." Then she walks away. MC tries to stop her, but she leaves quickly. Now MC is alone in the library. He looks at the book seriously, thinking that he opens at Nad starts reading and thinks deeply, who is time really affecting? Does time stop, move, or repeat for someone? Is time even real? He continues thinking, if time and space exist only in my mind, then am I the only one who thinks like this? He realizes it's just a novel. But still, he reads it very fast and seriously, like he's searching for something important inside it. Rena suddenly runs in and waves. Sir Knight, what are you doing here? MC looks up from the book. I got your room assignment. Let's go back. MC closes the book. Okay, it's almost time. Suddenly, a system screen appears in front of MC. He discovered a hidden part of Kevin Ashton's knowledge wisdom, plus 10 increased new ability unlocked. He can now sense others of his own species, skeletons, bonus skill gained. Inside MC thinks. Rena looks tired and says, we should hurry. I'm tired, MC thinks, surprised. My wisdom increased by 10, and I got a new skill. MC uses his new ability and sees Rena's stats. Name, Rena class. Thief, LV.15, stats, health, 21 strength, 22 agility, 29 wisdom, 20 likability, 40.
The skeleton knight is practicing with his sword and checking his stats. He notices that his swordsmanship skill is stuck at level 5 and is not increasing anymore. He starts wondering if there is some kind of limit on the skill. He also has a bonus skill called Insight, but he still does not fully understand how it works. Suddenly, Rena runs toward him in excitement. She tells him the tournament is about to begin. Announcement is made in the arena. The Arras tournament is officially starting, and the crowd gets excited. Rena leads the skeleton knight into the arena. An announcement says that Lord Ray, the man supervising the entire event, is about to appear. He skeleton knight sees the massive crowd and notices a king-like old man entering with guards. He assumes that man must be Lord Ray. The moment Lord Ray sees the skeleton knight, he suddenly looks shocked. It feels like he noticed something strange or unusual about him. The first preliminary round of the tournament begins. Fighters immediately start clashing their weapons and attacking each other seriously. The skeleton knight watches the fights. He wonders if the tournament prize is really that valuable, since everyone is fighting so hard. Rena says she is not sure about the prize either. Both of them continue watching the matches quietly. Rena explains that the tournament prize is just a ceremonial sword called the Lord's Seal. It is mostly symbolic and not actually useful in battle. Skeleton cannot understand why people are risking their lives for something like that. Rena tells him the real reason is pride and reputation. She explains that nobles use the tournament to compare their knights and show off their power. For knights, this is a rare chance to become famous without going to war. She talks about oathless knights, knights who do not serve any noble family yet. They join tournaments hoping powerful nobles will notice them and hire them. Rena realizes the skeleton might misunderstand her words. She awkwardly says she was not talking about him specifically, while he replies that he never said anything. An official suddenly calls for Sir Saray Jagan, which is the skeleton knight's registered name for the tournament. Rena cheers for him excitedly and tells him to defeat everyone. But the skeleton says he actually wants the opposite. He plans to avoid attracting attention from anyone. The match begins inside the arena. The rules are simple. The fight ends only when someone cannot continue fighting or gets pushed out of the stage. Standing in the arena, Skeleton realizes the battlefield is much bigger than it looked from the audience seats. He thinks pushing his opponent out of bounds will not be easy. His opponent is a huge muscular man carrying a giant hammer. The man mocks the skeleton for looking weak and says defeating a royal family knight will make the Jin a household notice and recruit him. Skeleton looks at the giant warrior and thinks he is unusually huge for a human. He decides to test whether the guy is actually as strong as he looks. He activates his insight skill for the first time during battle. A status window appears, revealing the enemy's stats and name, Jacot Isaac, a level 22 warrior. Skeleton notices something important immediately. Even though the warrior has high health, his agility is extremely low. As the match starts, the giant warrior jumps into the air and swings his massive hammer down while screaming for the skeleton to die. The audience cheers loudly because the attack looks devastating. But Skeleton calmly realizes that if the enemy is this slow, the fight will be easy. The giant hammer crashes into the arena floor with enormous force, creating a huge explosion of dust and cracks. The warrior thinks he has already won. Suddenly, his expression changes in shock. He realizes something is wrong. Hammer strike completely missed. Skeleton had already moved away before the attack landed and is standing safely behind him without a scratch. Warrior becomes confused and nervous. He cannot understand how the skeleton moved so fast that he could not even see him move at all. He cannot believe the skeleton knight managed to break his hammer and move behind him in such a tiny amount of time. Skeleton Knight tells him to surrender since he no longer has a weapon. After hearing that, he angrily says he does not need a weapon to defeat someone like him. Warrior charges forward with his bare fists, screaming that his own body is his weapon. Skeleton remains calm and prepares his sword. In one fast motion, he strikes the warrior before the man can even react properly. Warrior coughs blood and shock collapses to the ground instantly. The Skeleton Knight defeats him effortlessly in only a few moves. The people in the arena are completely stunned. Even the knight and the judge cannot believe how easily the giant warrior got defeated. Skeleton says there was no need to spill blood and scare the crowd. He clearly held back during the fight. Then the skeleton calls out to the judge to finish the match. Judge finally snaps out of shock and loudly declares the victor to be Saray Jagan. Suddenly, the crowd erupts with excitement and loud cheers. Seeing that Skeleton looks confused by the overwhelming reaction from everyone, Rainnolz comes and smiles at him. She says she thought he would avoid attention, but now he has made a huge impression on the entire arena. Skeleton then defeated new contestants one after another, and people began to enjoy watching his matches. In each fight, he defeated his enemies with ease. After the match, he would finish and go to rest. Skeleton is having a lot of moving around thinking that his insight skills are coming in handy, as he already knew his strengths and weaknesses. He sees some people trying to forcibly take Rainnolz with them. Rainnolz warns them that if Sir Jagan comes, they will kill everyone. Just then, Skeleton arrives. Upon seeing him, they all learn to become good. One of them, a bald businessman, offers him a knight position in his company and promises to double his salary. Hearing this, other businessmen also start offering temptations. Some talk about offering 3 times the salary, while others offer land and other facilities. But Skeleton clearly states that he's not interested in big money. He's focused on something else. Hearing this, Rainnolz feels a little relaxed, as Skeleton didn't agree with the merchants. Still, the merchant urges her to think again one last time. Suddenly, a drunk man starts creating a ruckus, shouting that the noise is so loud that he can't even sleep. He also gets angry at the guards and starts abusing the noise. Then Skeleton and Rainnolz spot the man. Rainnolz reveals that he is Skeleton's next opponent. Skeleton is shocked to hear that he will now have to fight a drunkard, but he still uses his insight skill to check his information. But this time, something strange happens. The skill fails repeatedly, and the other person's stats aren't displayed properly. Seeing this, Skeleton is shocked and cannot understand who this man is. The drunkard simply laughs and tells Skeleton to go back. Meanwhile, the announcement has been made that the quarterfinals of the tournament will officially start. After all this, as soon as he enters the arena, the name of announcer Saray Jagan starts echoing in the entire stadium. Everyone is looking at the skeleton like a rising monster. But his opponent was under a completely different pressure. He was more preoccupied with finding a restroom than the match itself, telling him he had to leave immediately. Meanwhile, Skeleton is still wondering why his insight skills aren't working on this man. After a while, the man is ready for the match. As soon as the match starts, Skeleton attacks at full speed without wasting any time. It seems that you don't even need insight to defeat a drunk man. But the next second, everything turns upside down. The drunk man dodges his attack as if he had predicted everything. Skeleton immediately realizes this opponent is no ordinary one. On the other side, the man with an irritated expression is thinking he'll have to end the match quickly and run to the bathroom. Then suddenly he uses his sword technique, Empire Fencing Part 1. Rainnolz suddenly rushes at Skeleton with crazy fast sword attacks. But Skeleton somehow blocks every hit one by one. Seeing this, Rainnolz gets excited and realizes Skeleton isn't just some weak newbie. Then he suddenly switches weapons and attacks from another angle, forcing Skeleton on defense again. But before Skeleton can react properly, Rainnolz slams him backward with a powerful strike and mocks him for lacking real battle experience. Right after that, a glowing attack suddenly hits Skeleton in the chest out of nowhere. Rainnolz instantly panics after seeing Skeleton get hit. Rainnolz also notices something strange nearby and turns serious for the first time. Taking that small opening, Skeleton jumps back into position and lands in front of him again. Now both fighters stop for a second. While Skeleton kneels down breathing heavily, trying to recover before the next exchange starts, Rainnolz suddenly realizes something is wrong after stabbing Skeleton. His blade clearly pierced through the body, but he didn't feel flesh or blood at all. That's when Skeleton understands he survived only because the sword slipped between his ribs. If he still had a normal human body, that attack would have killed him. Skeleton then notices Rainnolz's fighting style and immediately asks if it's Empire swordsmanship. Rainnolz casually admits it, acting like it's no big deal, but Skeleton instantly becomes serious after hearing that. He starts wondering if Rainnolz was once connected to the Empire Knights. But Rainnolz just laughs and says even if Skeleton is strong here, he still stands no chance against a real Empire Knight. For a moment Skeleton goes silent, thinking deeply about something. Then suddenly another loud impact echoes nearby. For a moment Skeleton goes silent, thinking deeply about something. Then suddenly another loud impact echoes nearby. Their swords instantly crash together once more as the fight becomes even more intense. While blocking the non-stop attacks, Skeleton realizes something important. If a retired knight like Rainnolz is already this dangerous, then fighting the Empire's strongest warriors later will be far worse. And because of that, Skeleton becomes even more determined not to lose here. Rainnolz keeps attacking non-stop while mocking Skeleton's defense, saying his blocking skills are decent, but nowhere near enough to beat him. But Skeleton had already been waiting for this exact moment. The instant Rainnolz committed fully to another straight thrust, Skeleton noticed the weakness in his movement. Because Rainnolz's sword style focused entirely on piercing attacks, his body became vulnerable from the sides whenever he lunged forward too far. Skeleton instantly took advantage of that opening. He suddenly slipped past the attack line so fast that even Rainnolz got caught off guard. A painful scream echoed across the arena as blood burst into the air. Rainnolz and the spectators instantly froze in shock after seeing the hit connect. Rainnolz staggered backward while clutching his injured arm. Blood kept dripping down his sleeve, and his sword almost slipped from his grasp. Meanwhile, Skeleton calmly stood in front of him with his blade still raised, ready to continue at any second. After a few silent breaths, Rainnolz slowly steadied himself and grabbed his head with a grin. Then he admitted Skeleton was far stronger than he first thought. His face and becomes serious. As a knight of the Empire, now I'll show you my real strength. Rainnolz suddenly rushes at Skeleton with crazy fast sword attacks. But Skeleton somehow blocks every hit one by one. Seeing this, Rainnolz gets excited and realizes Skeleton isn't just some weak newbie. Then he suddenly switches weapons and attacks from another angle, forcing Skeleton on defense again. But before Skeleton can react properly, Rainnolz slams him backward with a powerful strike and mocks him for lacking real battle experience. Right after that, a glowing attack suddenly hits Skeleton in the chest out of nowhere. Rainnolz instantly panics after seeing Skeleton get hit. Rainnolz also notices something strange nearby and turns serious for the first time. Taking that small opening, Skeleton jumps back into position and lands in front of him again. Now both fighters stop for a second. While Skeleton kneels down breathing heavily, trying to recover before the next exchange starts, Rainnolz suddenly realizes something is wrong after stabbing Skeleton. His blade clearly pierced through the body, but he didn't feel flesh or blood at all. That's when Skeleton understands he survived only because the sword slipped between his ribs. If he still had a normal human body, that attack would have killed him. Skeleton then notices Rainnolz's fighting style and immediately asks if it's Empire swordsmanship. Rainnolz casually admits it, acting like it's no big deal, but Skeleton instantly becomes serious after hearing that. He starts wondering if Rainnolz was once connected to the Empire Knights. But Rainnolz just laughs and says even if Skeleton is strong here, he still stands no chance against a real Empire Knight. For a moment Skeleton goes silent, thinking deeply about something. Then suddenly another loud impact echoes nearby. For a moment Skeleton goes silent, thinking deeply about something. Then suddenly another loud impact echoes nearby. Their swords instantly crash together once more as the fight becomes even more intense. While blocking the non-stop attacks, Skeleton realizes something important. If a retired knight like Rainnolz is already this dangerous, then fighting the Empire's strongest warriors later will be far worse. And because of that, Skeleton becomes even more determined not to lose here. Rainnolz keeps attacking non-stop while mocking Skeleton's defense, saying his blocking skills are decent, but nowhere near enough to beat him. But Skeleton had already been waiting for this exact moment. The instant Rainnolz committed fully to another straight thrust, Skeleton noticed the weakness in his movement. Because Rainnolz's sword style focused entirely on piercing attacks, his body became vulnerable from the sides whenever he lunged forward too far. Skeleton instantly took advantage of that opening. He suddenly slipped past the attack line so fast that even Rainnolz got caught off guard. A painful scream echoed across the arena as blood burst into the air. Rainnolz and the spectators instantly froze in shock after seeing the hit connect. Rainnolz staggered backward while clutching his injured arm. Blood kept dripping down his sleeve, and his sword almost slipped from his grasp. Meanwhile, Skeleton calmly stood in front of him with his blade still raised, ready to continue at any second. After a few silent breaths, Rainnolz slowly steadied himself and grabbed his head with a grin. Then he admitted Skeleton was far stronger than he first thought. His face and becomes serious. As a knight of the Empire, now I'll show you my real strength. Smoke spreads across the arena while Skeleton and Rainnolz point their swords at each other again. Even after getting hurt, Rainnolz still looks calm and dangerous. Rainnolz gets nervous and says Skeleton is slowly getting pushed back. The other knights quickly realize Rainnolz fights like an imperial knight. The crowd becomes shocked after hearing Rainnolz's real name, Saray Jagan. They even say the craziest part is that Skeleton is somehow still keeping up with him. Rainnolz smirks and says he's starting to respect Skeleton a little. He jokes that he almost feels bad for fighting him while drunk. Then Rainnolz says good reflexes alone are not enough to become an imperial knight. According to him, a special condition is also needed. Skeleton asks what that special condition is. Rainnolz points his sword at him and says, "Beat me first, then I'll tell you." Right after hearing that, Skeleton suddenly dashes forward at full speed. Rainnolz instantly swings his sword down, but Skeleton blocks the attack without backing away. Their swords crash together as sparks fly everywhere. Rainnolz then smirks and says Skeleton's defense is good, but his attacks are weak. Skeleton gets confused for a moment after hearing those words. Skeleton suddenly swings downward, but the attack misses slightly and crashes into the ground. Rainnolz instantly counters with a fast rapier stab and catches Skeleton off guard. Then Rainnolz follows up with a glowing slash attack. The impact blasts Skeleton backward across the arena floor. Skeleton rolls on the ground coughing in pain before forcing himself back up while holding his chest. Rainnolz calmly tells him that he made a mistake thinking his attacks only move in straight lines. Skeleton finally realizes Rainnolz can bend and change his sword path mid-attack. Rainnolz says he's done playing around and decides to finish the fight. He immediately thrusts his sword straight towards Skeleton. At the last second, Skeleton grabs the incoming blade with both hands and barely stops it. A huge flash bursts out from the clash, making Rainnolz and the others panic in shock. Even while sitting on the ground, Skeleton still stares at Rainnolz's sword pointed right at him. He looks badly cornered now. Rainnolz slowly walks forward with confidence, while Skeleton remains down on the floor behind him, struggling to move. Rainnolz calls the referee and tells him to announce the winner, thinking the fight is already over. But before the result is declared, Skeleton slowly stands back up. Seeing him still standing, Rainnolz freezes for a second and asks if he's some kind of monster. Skeleton says he never wanted to become an Empire Knight in the first place. That answer shocks him completely. He then asks why Skeleton cares so much about the Empire. Skeleton reveals he's searching for someone from there, a legendary swordsman named Marquis. The moment he hears that name, Rainnolz's expression changes instantly. Skeleton calmly says he can't afford to lose to Empire swordsmanship again before meeting that man. Rainnolz laughs bitterly and says he never expected to hear such an annoying name again. It's clear he has personal hatred connected to that swordsman. He suddenly gets emotional and starts shouting, asking if that bastard is really so great. Then he completely loses control and charges forward like crazy, stabbing non-stop towards Skeleton. While attacking wildly, he yells that because of that man, he lost his place as a knight and even disappointed his father. Skeleton keeps getting pushed back and slammed by the attacks. Realizes things are becoming really dangerous for him now. Rainnolz started taking the tension completely while Rainnolz panics from the side. But even after that distraction, his rapier still pierces straight into Skeleton's armor. Rainnolz keeps ranting about how meaningless titles are, but Skeleton cuts him off coldly and says this fight will end right here. Then, to everyone's shock, Rainnolz suddenly gives up and announces that he's withdrawing from the match. Even Skeleton looks confused for a second, while the referee stares in disbelief and asks if he really just surrendered. Rainnolz casually shrugs it off, saying the fight stopped being fun anyway, and decides he'd rather go drink alcohol instead. With that unexpected withdrawal, the arena finally declares Skeleton as the winner while confetti rains down around him. Rainnolz gets excited by the result, but then the truth behind the Empire Knights finally comes out. The real requirement was never talent or skill alone, it was sword kai. Rainnolz admits that he failed to become an Empire Knight because he could never use sword kai himself. Then he warns Skeleton that no matter how skilled he is, he'll never defeat that man without it. The arena slowly falls quiet after he leaves. Only the abandoned sword remains on the ground, shining faintly under the drifting dust and light. The remaining contestants are gathered in a banquet hall after the tournament round. As they eat, blue status windows appear above the contestants, showing their names, classes, levels, and stats. A large feast has been prepared for them as a reward for reaching the semifinals. Skeleton uses insight and checks the information of everyone sitting at the table. He realizes that insight works on all the contestants here. which means he can compare their abilities clearly. From the stats, Skeleton understands one important thing. Tebald was the strongest contestant in the tournament. Skeleton admits to himself that if his fight with Tebald had continued, he would have definitely lost. He remembers how Tebald's attack pierced straight through his armor. He understands that armor is useless against attacks covered with sword kai. At the banquet table, Lord Lorne Rhea sits with the contestants while guards stand behind him. Lord Rhea congratulates everyone for reaching the semifinals. He tells them that the feast is only a small reward for their skill, and they should enjoy it. Skeleton notices a mark on the guard's neck. That mark reminds him of the Necron Society. Skeleton thinks the guards may be connected to the Necron Society. He becomes more certain that something suspicious is happening in this place. Suddenly, blue status windows appear in front of the guards, but unlike the contestants, the guards' names and stats are hidden. The hidden information makes Skeleton even more alert. Skeleton realizes that the Lord has 4 guards who may be as strong as Tebald or even stronger. He understands that the tournament is only an excuse for the Lord to watch people kill each other for entertainment. Skeleton becomes angry, but he controls himself. Then Lorne Rhea suddenly calls him by another name, Sir Jagan. Skeleton is surprised when he hears it. Lord says Skeleton's sword skills are impressive. He finds it strange that someone so talented is only working as a guard for a merchant family. Lord tells Skeleton that his talent is being wasted. He says a strong person should serve a greater lord instead of staying with a merchant. Then unknown contestant openly offers Skeleton a chance to serve him. The other contestants at the table are shocked by how directly he says it. Lord Ray explains that knights may feel loyal to their current master, but he believes the right person should sit in the right position. He says it irritates him when someone holds a place without earning it. Skeleton understands that Lord Ray is using this belief to justify his actions. Skeleton thinks about the Lord's past crimes and accuses him of killing his own brother and nephew with that same excuse. Skeleton is furious and wants to attack him, but he knows doing that here would only get him killed for. Lord keeps pressuring Skeleton to decide quickly. He says Skeleton may regret refusing him and adds that he has no interest in losers. Lorne Rhea also asks Skeleton to remove his helmet, but Skeleton refuses and simply says it is fine. Lord reminds Knights that although it's disappointing in not being able to see your face after preparing such a spread, and Knights responds, "Well, do whatever you want." Skeleton becomes alert because this person is his next opponent. Skeleton repeats the name in his mind and tries to remember what he knows about Creston. Lorne Rhea looks at the remaining contestants with growing interest. He says tomorrow's match excites him because one side has a wandering gladiator with a hidden identity, while the other has a mysterious knight from the Jinne family. Then he laughs and says that whoever survives tomorrow, he will finally get to see the real face behind one of them. After saying that, Lorne Rhea puts tomorrow aside and decides to enjoy the present. He says tomorrow can wait, and for now they should have some fun. With a snap of his fingers, he calls for entertainment. A group of women enters the banquet hall and starts serving the contestants. The barbarian quickly enjoys the attention, drinking and laughing with them, while the blonde swordsman also accepts it calmly. But the armored fighter in white and yellow does the opposite. Instead of relaxing, he suddenly stands up, making the woman beside him freeze in confusion. The white and yellow armored contestant leaves his seat without interest, and the woman can only awkwardly watch him go. A moment later, another woman approaches Skeleton with a drink, trying to serve him as well, but Skeleton stays silent and clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. Skeleton gets up too and refuses politely, saying he is fine as well. At the same time, the other armored contestant has already stepped out of the banquet hall, leaving the noise and distractions behind. Outside in the corridor, Skeleton finds that same contestant waiting there. The armored man, leaning quietly against the wall, notices Skeleton and asks if he is not enjoying the festivities either. Skeleton replies that he has no interest in that kind of thing, then asks if the other man feels the same. The white and yellow knight confirms it in his own way and says he knows the knight orders of the Empire well, but he has never heard of any knightage belonging to the Jinne. He continues pressing the point, saying that in such peaceful times, it would be strange for a small noble family like Jinne to have a knight unless money or favors were involved. Hearing that word, Skeleton quietly repeats it in his mind, peaceful, as if the idea itself feels. The armored knight keeps questioning him. He says Skeleton seems to know a lot about knights, so he asks why he is borrowing the name of a noble family. He wonders if Skeleton is using it to make himself look more valuable and gain a place in Erast. Then, after noticing how unusual Skeleton's words and behavior are, he stops circling around the issue and asks directly why he is. That final question hits the truth too closely. In the very next instant, the white and yellow knight reacts with force, gripping his sword and swinging it straight at Skeleton, turning their quiet conversation in the hallway into a sudden confrontation. Creston becomes angry and demands to know what Skeleton really is and how much he knows about him. Skeleton calmly answers that he knows nothing. He says he was only testing him, and even though Creston hides his face behind a helmet, his personality already gave him away. Creston realizes Skeleton was provoking him on purpose. He calls Skeleton impudent, but then forces himself to calm down and accepts the situation for now. He pulls back his sword and says they will settle it properly tomorrow. Before leaving, Creston warns Skeleton that tomorrow he will crush both his attitude and his helmet. He says he will show him exactly why people call him the barbarian. Creston walks away, leaving Skeleton standing in the corridor. Their fight has not started yet, but the pressure between them is already clear. Tomorrow's match is now personal. The semifinals begin, and the crowd starts placing bets on the match between Creston the Barbarian and Sarah Jagan. The announcer presents both fighters, and everyone waits to see who will win. The betting gets intense because the payout for Jagan is extremely high. A bet on him can return 30 times the money, which makes the crowd excited. Just then, Rainnolz steps forward and places a huge bag of money on Jagan. The people around her are shocked by how much she is betting. Rainnolz confidently declares that she is going all in on Sarah Jagan. She believes he will win, even though the odds are heavily against him. Skeleton notices her and asks what she is doing there. Rainnolz greets him casually, but he reminds her that she should be preparing for the next match instead. Rainnolz admits that she was planning to relax since her mission was already complete. But after seeing a knight fighting, she says he must win no matter what. The semi-final match officially begins. The announcer introduces Jagan as the newcomer who defeated Jacob in the preliminaries, and introduces Creston as his terrifyingly strong opponent. Creston enters the arena with his massive greatsword. Skeleton looks at the weapon and realizes it is even bigger and more dangerous than he remembered. Skeleton understands that blocking Creston's attacks will be a bad idea. Even if he defends properly, the force of that greatsword will still cause heavy damage, so he decides he must avoid every. Before the fight starts, Creston warns Jagan that he has watched his previous matches. He says if Jagan uses the same weak methods against him, he will die. Skeleton stays focused as the match begins. Creston immediately charges forward and swings his huge sword with full force, starting the fight with a dangerous opening attack. Creston jumps high into the air and raises his greatsword, aiming to crush Skeleton from above with a heavy strike. The sword crashes down with massive force, but Skeleton moves away in time. He avoids the main hit instead of trying to block it directly. Skeleton lands safely and confirms his first plan works. Creston's reach is long, but as long as Skeleton keeps the right distance, he can dodge it. Skeleton's sudden approach surprises Creston. Creston did not expect Skeleton to move in so fast right after dodging. Skeleton attacks with a fast strike, but Creston reacts and moves away before it can land properly. Skeleton is sure his timing was correct, so he is confused when the attack fails. He realizes Creston's body control and reaction speed are better than expected. The sword crashes down with massive force, but Skeleton moves away in time. He avoids the main hit instead of trying to block it directly. Creston explains that Skeleton miscalculated. He says Skeleton was wrong if he thought he was just a brute who only relied on strength. Skeleton understands the problem now. Creston is not only strong, he also has high endurance and enough skill to keep fighting even after heavy movement. Creston admits that Skeleton is faster than he expected. He says if he wants to fully crush him, he will need to do something about that speed first, because catching him will not be easy. Creston raises his greatsword again, but this time he prepares a different kind of attack instead of just swinging normally. He slams his sword down with a new method. The impact spreads out and fills the area with smoke and dust. Skeleton moves back quickly, but the attack still forces him to retreat. Creston uses that opening and suddenly appears above him. Skeleton realizes the danger too late as Creston raises the greatsword for another heavy strike. Skeleton reacts at the last second and barely redirects the attack to the side. Skeleton survives, but the force throws him down and leaves him shaken. He realizes he only pushed the blade aside, yet that alone was almost too much. Skeleton understands how dangerous Creston's power really is. Even one more hit could put him in serious danger, so he cannot afford another mistake. Creston notices that Skeleton's dodging skill is impressive, but he still looks confident. Skeleton now knows this fight is not just about avoiding the sword, he needs a new plan before Creston overwhelms him. Creston confidently tells Skeleton that no matter how fast he moves, defeat is only a matter of time. While catching his breath, Skeleton realizes that dodging and simple attacks alone will never let him win this fight. Skeleton suddenly decides to abandon ordinary tactics and chooses a much more brutal approach. He smashes the ground with force, creating a massive explosion of dust and debris. Using the dust cloud as cover, Skeleton disappears from Creston's sight and rushes forward at full speed. Before Creston can react, Skeleton suddenly appears directly in front of him. The battle instantly turns into close combat as their swords collide with explosive force. Skeleton keeps moving non-stop, attacking from different angles to break through Creston's defense. Skeleton understands that one or two attacks are useless against such overwhelming armor and strength. Instead, he decides to overwhelm Creston completely with pure speed and endless strike. Like a storm, Skeleton unleashes dozens of slashes in rapid succession, forcing Creston backward. Even Creston begins struggling to keep up as the relentless attacks crash against his armor. Seeing an opening, Skeleton gathers all his momentum into one final decisive strike. The finishing blow lands with terrifying force, shaking the entire arena and throwing debris everywhere. The crowd watches in complete shock as Creston's helmet is blown away from the impact. But Skeleton suddenly freezes after realizing something completely unexpected.